All right. Well, first of all, thank you all for coming. It's not a bad spot to hold an event like this, and you know, Rick and Zap and I were really excited when they came up with the idea. I'm like, this is going to be really cool. We're not trying to sell some fancy new carbon piece of this and ceramic that. It's like, it's just a bunch of people that have got some amazing stories that we want to share. So, you know, thank you for that. Yeah, so I'm now going to hand it over to Rick, who, thank you, Rick. He's going to kind of tell you how it all sort of came together.
So first off, I'd like to thank our official greeters at Dutch Corner halfway up for greeting you guys. This Beverly and Sean and Allie. So the inspiration, I was thinking that a couple of guys might be here. So the inspiration for this was actually a NorCal motocross reunion that I wasn't going to attend, and Zap said, what do you mean you're not going? You're going. So I showed up in Santa Cruz thanks to his urging, and he was there, and Jim Turner was there, and KB was there, which surprised me. And so I was so inspired by the fact that people do care about the shoulders we stand on as current industry players. And I thought it would be nice to get the group together because I so enjoyed it. And there's a lot of connectivity. So I'll be very quick because I want to get to the reason you're here.
Anyways, okay, so this is a great event, first time ever, and it really is the culmination of many long phone calls initially between Rick and I that just sort of like Rick, we were just, I don't know why we were even beginning to have conversations, but it just like through our conversations, you know, we just started thinking about all these touch points through history and friendships and this a level of connectivity that kind of like, I'm like, you know, and like, it's, again, so many things, whether it's KB and a lot of motorcycle stuff. So this isn't like for some people who might be sitting here looking at me thinking about like how cynically this is finally a chance to expound upon my fascination with motorcycles to a bicycle audience. It's not just that, but there is this thread of motorcycles and motorcycling and motocross specifically that kind of connects a lot of us together here today. And so that was sort of the impetus for a lot of this. But really, it's just like, as we started having these discussions, you know, and then we started thinking about like Santa Cruz, the city of Santa Cruz, which is really kind of like, it seemed like that was the foundation for much of this event because as we started like drilling down to all of our personal histories, stories, and friendships, this thing of Santa Cruz kind of kept coming up, you know. And so, you know, then Rick of the kind of the more entrepreneurial project mind, he's like, God, you know, maybe we should do some kind of an event where we can bring these guys together and talk about it, you know. And I'm just like just so fascinated with trying to tell stories, and especially tell stories about the people that have made my life as complete as it is. Here, you know, lo and behold, here we are. And as we started drilling down more and more, you know, we're sort of thinking like, oh, you know, what can we, like, what's our title? What's our gathering point, you know? And so was born, you know, from the conversation, dumpster diving to the Tour de France, because, you know, from KB's famous story about dumpster diving, which we'll get into, to Jim and Craig, and all of a sudden there was just like this culmination of these people who, you said I could cuss, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, who fucking made important history in the bicycle world and in the world, in the larger world, and they all came from Santa Cruz. And then, you know, we kind of snuck Turner in because all of a sudden it's like, well, Turner has had this thing with KB, and again, so anyways, so we're here today. Thank you all for being here. You guys showing up. It's a beautiful day. Just two things that real quickly, I want to first of all thank Rick and Gail. Historically, you know, the thing that's amazed me about Rick is like, you know, for the last few years, you know, he opens his heart, he opens his Rolodex, and unlike so many of us, he opens his house to all of us. So, you know, the first time I got invited to a Rick and Gail party here, I was just like, I remember driving away that night just thinking like, God, who does this? Like, nobody does this, you know, and just puts this on for us. And, you know, and we're all, you know, a bunch of scrappy bikers coming from the Sea Otter, you know, and just this wonderful spread and just a level of hospitality that I think should be recognized and appreciated. So to Rick and Gail, thank you for this.
It's awesome.
And then just lastly, before we kick off real for sure, I just want to just take one moment to recognize just like 2 weeks ago, the bicycle industry lost a wonderful storyteller, a leader, an advocate, Tim Blumenthal. And I just wanted to mention Tim in passing because he was a great editor, a commentator on TV. He worked for IMBA, Bikes Belong. It's just like this guy lived and breathed bicycles for his entire life. And more important than that, he was just such a kind and gentle guy. And so anyways, just real quickly, I just want to pay a minute of respect as we talk about stories and how bicycles have inspired these stories to Tim Blumenthal. Okay, with that aside, for years, I've been doing this job for a long time, and one thing I've always tried to do when I talk to people, whether it's Ernesto Colnago, Craig Calfee, or whoever, the one question that always comes to mind, which I think is something that we can all relate to, is what is it about the bicycle? And because we all have this level of fascination about a bicycle, and I've always said it's like, it's 2 wheels, a chain, and a handlebar, and yet, I mean, look at the Sea Otter, what that's become, and look at the Tour de France, and just the Tifosi, and people, everything, the simplest things in the world, and yet, here we are, and just, that's what's connected us. And so, what is it about the bicycle is a question, again, like I've asked like hundreds of designers and everything over the years, and I think, thankfully, hopefully, today we're going to find out more of an answer to that with these 4 guys that we're talking to, starting with Jim Gentes. Good morning.
Good morning.
One of the interesting guy here, Jim invented the Giro helmet. It's in the lead up to this, I've interviewed all these guys just to get some background notes and stuff, and Jim is just funny because just real quickly, I would see him at all these bike events over the years, old dude, he's all, he sold his company, he's just like living his life. And this is my one memory of Jim's. I go to Cross Nationals every year, and here's this guy, he's like, I got a coach, and yada, yada, yada. And I'm like, coach? It's like, just go out and ride and have fun. Determination. I mean, and that came up when he was talking about like what it took for him to take this idea of a Giro helmet and turn it into what it became. So here you are, Jim. Welcome.
Thank you.
Here's like to begin with. I mean, like, so you talked early on about how aero was like a big fascination for you.
Yes. Yeah.
And you were working for Blackburn for like 6 years and getting design ideas. You actually had a degree in industrial design?
I do, yeah.
Yeah.
I went to San Jose State, so did Jim.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
So just real quickly, you talked about how you were at one race and Tinley kind of inspired you, but what is it about aero? Like, who cares? But you care.
Well, it's free speed, basically. You just get to go faster. And that story was, I watched the Ironman one year when the gal's crawling across the finish line. I'm like, oh man, I got to try this. So I signed up for the Lake Del Valle triathlon. I was probably 26 or 27. I forget, 20. I didn't even know how to, I could swim a mile and out there, get my head kicked in. But I got on the bike and I see Tinley out there, he's running shorts and a t-shirt. And I'm like, I've been fascinated with aerodynamics since the '84 Olympics when they had all that cool stuff. And I'm like, these guys need aero equipment. I mean, it just dawned on me. I'm like, okay, they really need aero equipment. So that was spinning in the back of my head. On a parallel storyline at San Jose State, I did a human-powered vehicle. Yeah. And it's a pretty cool bike. It was a leanable tricycle, and raced it and got in that whole circle. And, in school, they teach you to change the world. And I thought, these vehicles, I hated cars, they're super efficient. And I did a few variations, and I got really into the aerodynamics and went to NASA and learned about airfoils and all the airflow stuff. And it was an incredible project because it's like a Formula One car. You got to pedal it, you got to cool. And actually, Jim and Sun Tour sponsored me. We went to England and raced it. So I just had this wonderful experience with aerodynamics and learned, wow, I mean, I think my vehicle went 52 miles an hour, Fred Markham pedaling it. And, it's 3/4 of a horsepower at the most. So I was like, this aero stuff works. So that's how I got hooked into aerodynamics. Yeah. Is like, wow, you can just go faster. And then I did a lot of road racing. So I was one of the first to use a Kestrel. Aero wheels, and the whole thing started using a skin suit. So I could bridge up to breakaways, and I just knew I'm like so far ahead of a few people that, you know, it's just it was fun. It was free, you know, free speed, I call it. So,
But it wasn't free speed, because you told me how many times when you were in the formation of this company, you had no money.
yeah,
And so it wasn't exactly free. It
No.
took a lot of money for you to get, and just the hours, of course. But
Right.
talk a little bit about that. I
Yeah,
then
so-
your uncle who came up with that math, some calculations.
well, yeah, I did. So I come from a family of Lockheed, I call them Rocket Brothers or whatever. They all worked. My Uncle Al went to MIT, got recruited to Lockheed, and then he brought 3 brothers over. So they all worked in the space industry. My dad worked there his whole life, and he'd bring home little titanium bolts and stuff, you know, cool things. And I'd be, you know, geeking out on the weight, because back in the 70s, weight was a big deal. But through racing, I learned in cyclocross pain and determination, and that got me through being an entrepreneur. It's not easy. It's just it's hard. It's really hard. You got to have some determination.
Yeah.
So, okay, what was the?
Well, you
want to
said in
start?
terms of the hurdles of actually getting to
Yeah.
where you got this, and you spoke a couple times of being, again, not having any money.
Yeah.
But needing you. That's the thing. It was just so, like, with all these guys to a degree, you know, just like, again, what you just spoke to, the hardship. You know, this guy, he had this idea, and I remember my notes thinking about you, just like, you're like, this is the solution. I
Yeah.
know this is the solution.
Yeah.
And so you kept working at it. You come out with this diabolical thing,
Yeah.
and then
And-
which finally led us, you know, to where we are today. With, you know, so, I mean, it was just like those hurdles for you. But what about just that level of just what was driving you?
Well, I wanted to go faster, and I just saw that all that aero stuff. I was like, these guys are going to need this. So there was 2 things that was intriguing. The market for triathlons was just booming. The demographics were good. So from a business sense, and I have a pretty good business mind. I took business classes at school. That's a good thing to go into a market with money, you know. And but then I was like, they need this aero stuff. And so I looked at aeroframe. But back then it was going to be $5,000. I was going to lease it or something. I go, I don't know, you know. Went and visited a few frame builders. Like, I built some frames. That's a lot of work. I don't know about that. Looked at the rubber skin suit. I actually did a 1-piece suit idea. And helmet, looked at the helmet, the disc wheel, which Steve Head went on to do. And I was like, I don't know anything about fiberglass. So it turned out the helmet, early on, Chet Kyle did some stuff, aerodynamic stuff.
Yeah.
The disc wheel was the fastest, saved you about a minute over 40K. And the helmet saved you 38 seconds over 40K. And I'm like, it was kind of a value proposition. I'm like, no, I'll just do a helmet. I knew about the airfoil shapes, so I was about going faster. I'm like, you know, I got to do a helmet for these triathletes. So, you know, the hard part was I was working at Blackburn, and we'd lost Jim recently, and I'm very lucky to be mentored by him. And I had to quit. I said, I got to go do this. So I just jumped off. I call it jumping off the building, because there's nothing there. I mean, I was married at the time, but we had a little bit of money. I think it was about $13,000 that I started with. And so I built this helmet.
And
went
what
to
year
the
was that?
Pardon?
What year?
This was 85.
Okay.
Fall of early 85.
Okay.
And you got to wing it, as you guys probably know. You really got to wing it. I went thinking I was going to go in the wind tunnel at NASA, and they said, you know what, you could just do a test on the roof of your car. So I built the mannequin. I called him Eddie, E-D-D-Y. Had hair, had latex ears, and put little strips on here, and had a camera on here, and a little dial for the speed. And I get up at 5 in the morning, and I did my own little virtual wind tunnel. And it worked. It actually worked. This texture is like a golf ball, and that's lower speeds, below about 30 miles an hour. It really is effective. This has got 3 vents. I did one for track road riders, because I thought, I'll do the road ride market too. But this has the ventilation. And what's kind of wild is, for those that haven't been around, I have these little ear covers, which is kind of come in vogue recently. But what I looked at doing was, they were just plastic fiberglass shells. There was a couple of brands out there, and I'm like, you know, they need protection. So this had some protection, but it didn't meet the. Later on, I was put out of business in January of 1986, when USA Cycling required Ansi and Snell helmets. And I was like, that was not a great moment for me. I mean, I was just stuck. I was broke. I'm like, I gotta come up with something. I looked at using expanded polystyrene for the interior, redoing the whole helmet. And the more I looked at the material, I'm like, wow. And there was another study about impact protection, and it was a Little Bell shell had the second or third best helmet rating. And I'm like, how can a piece of foam, everybody said that, how can a piece of foam do that? And it was a miracle. So I said, you know what? I think I could design a better bike helmet. And
Is that it there?
yes, that was the moment. And this is the ProLite, and it encompasses all the aerodynamic stuff I learned with human-powered vehicles. And I was a pretty hardcore racer for years, and I just knew that they did not want to wear, I didn't bring a Bell helmet, but the Bell V1 Pro weighed about 14 ounces, if you probably remember, some of you don't. This is 7.5. It was just like, I was a god to some people. It was like, they were going to quit racing, and I'm like, I can race again. And literally, they were going to quit. I'm not wearing a helmet. They just didn't.
Way.
I mean, it's hard to fathom that now, but people are like, I'm not wearing a helmet. There's no way. Because there's a certain amount of freedom that we all grew up with. And so the challenge was, how do you put vents in a helmet that's just styrofoam, this EPP foam? And there's a lot of engineering that went on with this. This is a really thick front section. And then there's a thing called Bernoulli's theorem of fluid dynamics. And I love saying that because it makes me sound like I'm very sophisticated. But the air actually comes through and blows out the back. And I learned that from the human-powered vehicles. The same thing, you have a small, you see it now with helmets of low pressure area, and then the air comes out the back. And it really worked. I mean, when this helmet came out, people were like, I could feel the hair. And there was another little subtle thing I did was I invented this flush mounted strap, which never gets written about, but that was a big deal. So you got to remember the Bell V1 Pro is here, and it would rattle around on your head, which we'll get to later, and then you'd see the straps, and you were kind of trapped by the straps. But the ProLite, it was flush, and it was so light. You're like, I mean, there are people that have walked into houses and then you got your helmet on, Oh, I forgot I got my helmet on still. So I made sure it passed the ANSI and Snell standard. But I started with zero money at that point. I was broke, but determined. And I had this feeling like, this is it. And we all work on ideas and they're all kind of good, but this one just was like, I got to get this done. I don't care. And I was used to staying up 24 hours. So I was like, those guys at Bell are sleeping. I'm going to stay up 24 hours if I have to. I mean, literally did.
Nice.
I actually made the model, was painting it, driving down to the Anaheim trade show, and I'd stop and put some gray. I don't have it. I think the folks at Giro have it. There's a little prototype I made, and I had to hustle. Yeah.
So you go to the Interbike trade show, it becomes a hit.
Yes, yeah, it was a big hit. I kept it in my bag hidden because I knew trade shows, everybody goes snooping around for stuff. That's what we'd always did at Blackburn. I'd go around looking what's new, come back and give a report, and I was like, I'm only going to show it to bike racers with shaved legs. Yeah. I'd see some guys with those funny looking legs, I was like, come on over here, I got this. And then after a while, word got out, and it was pretty cool. Greg LeMond came by, and I think I had $40,000 worth of orders.
So that's a good jumping up point. So of course, I mean, everybody probably remembers, the famous photos of Hampton 7-Eleven with the helmet and the lycra covers. Talked about that, but just for the sake of it, probably most famously the photo of Le Mans, Champs-Élysées.
Right.
And how did that happen? Like, how did that come up?
Well, that's the other helmet I developed. You have time for all that stuff? So I really love aerodynamics, as you might have heard. That one, we didn't have a helmet for aerodynamics, so I was like, you know what? I got to get the aero helmet done. And I had a buddy that was on the Olympic team, and I got a hold of I think Bell made this, the Olympic helmet. It was just a plastic shell.
Yeah.
And I said, you know what? I gotta beat that number because there's a drag number. So I went to Canada, Ottawa, a low-speed wind tunnel with clay, if anybody's worked with modeling clay. And I geeked out and I had my head form from Eddie from the earlier testing. I had the shoulders and stuff, and I put it in the wind tunnel. And I started working on some concepts. And this is basically an airfoil that's sort of truncated right here. It would keep going. And then this is what I really, kind of the big breakthrough was I did it external aerodynamics and internal aerodynamics. So this is really kind of the first thing to really push your hair down. The hair causes a lot of drag. So, and then one of the other breakthroughs was this little rib here allowed a gap in the back. And there's actually a cam tail here. It's 45-degree bevel, and it let the air out. And so this was first cooling and everything. And then, anyway, long story short, just worked on it, go back, fiddle all night with it, bring it back in the tunnel. There's nothing better than getting a number, you know, especially in the early days when it was 10, 15% change. And the thing really worked. I beat the Olympic helmet with a helmet that offers protection. I thought, that's a home run there. So getting guys to wear helmets in the Tour de France was one of my lifelong goals, and I just kept pushing. We signed Greg LeMond to wear a helmet. He wasn't required to do it, but we had to just keep pushing and pushing. And then when they start doing more wind tunnel testing, they see, hey, this helps out. We got to start using these. So I was at the Olympics, at the Tour de France that year that Greg won, and I was there for the first 2 weeks, and I got him the helmet for the long time trial, which was the one that doesn't get a lot of publicity, but he was behind Fignon, picked up a minute and a half, which is just, it was so cool. I was like, all right. But to have him come back was still a miracle. I don't think he's going to make up 50 seconds. I don't know who would have thought that. I got to go home. I'm tired. I get a call at 4 a.m. from Bill Hanneman, our president. Gentes, he won. And goosebumps. It was just incredible.
Oh, cheers.
Yeah. And, they say it's one of the top 100 sports moments. Some books write up these things. It's pretty neat to be a little company, to be part of that, to make a difference. And we all dream about that kind of stuff. That's what keeps all his inventors going, is being there, making a difference, making it better, faster, higher performing, you name it.
So one of the ironies after Rick's kind of quasi-cheerful intro about Jim, helmet saving his life. One of the things in talking to Jim a couple of weeks ago is just like, we're going through all this stuff, and the one thing, the irony of supreme ironies for this guy to say this was that he's like, I didn't really care about safety. Didn't even think about the safety side to it. I just wanted to get my helmet on the Tour de France. And I'm thinking like, huh? We all sit here and think like, praise be for Gentes for inventing this bitchin' helmet. And to Rick's point, it saved, hundreds of thousands of lives. And here's the guy who actually invented the helmet. He goes, yeah, safety schmafety, who cares? I just wanted to get into the Tour de France. And I've heard that, so like just the lure of the Tour de France, from like Roman Arnold at Canyon, telling me this story. I'm like, so, what got you in? He goes, I was watching the tour with my kid, and, and he got so excited. I said, I'm going to get my bikes in the Tour de France, and lo and behold, So I think it's just this kind of supreme irony that for you, it wasn't even about the safety side. It was about performance and the Tour de France. And and that comeback against Fignon and, in the Tour, sincerely, that is one of the greatest comebacks.
Yeah, because they're racers. They want to beat the other guy, so they don't want anything to slow them down. So it was a tough challenge. It really was.
Is there one product of everything you've done that stands out for you in terms of like the moment that you're most proud of?
Well,
you have Rock Lock,
this one, the ProLite kind of started the whole industry. Yeah. But it didn't stop. There's some cool things. I invented this roll cage that when they crash, they'd break, and people were like, ah. And this is a fun thing for those that engineering mind kind of get a kick out of it. I got a patent on it, actually. It's melded flat, and then it folds up, and then that's probably the first injection molded piece that's insert molded. So, we take it for granted how complicated this is stuff, but I looked at the car industry, and these are two halves that are put together. Now they have all sorts of pulls, but we invented pretty much all that technology, the front pulls, the side pulls. And so that's one big thing. The roll cage was a pretty cool idea. And then the silk screening. Well, actually, let's get to the Rock Lock, because you wanted to get into the motocross side of stuff. And the Rock Lock, when mountain bikes took off, man, people were bouncing around. And Liz Bradley, our marketing manager, said, Jim, can you do something, take a look at that? I'm like, yeah, I can take a look at that. And so we invented the Rock Lock, which is the first kind of stabilization system for helmets. And the cool story here, we are still a small company. I have a pretty good engineering mind, but I can't do everything, so we didn't have engineers on staff, so I hired a firm, Design Continuum, out of Boston, and they were known for doing the pump, if you remember the Reebok pump. And I thought, it wasn't as successful as, Nike went on to take over the market, but that was pretty iconic, and it's still, if you go watch the videos, this guy goes and stops. I'm like, okay, we need something like that. So we came up with this pretty cool, simple idea. It was very simple, but they came up with some really nice injection molded clip-in systems, which didn't really happen then. And then this is the Greg Herbold. This was our first mountain. We did the first visor, I think, for a mountain bike was ever done. And so that was pretty cool. And then the biggest thing was the silk screening. And so you can see that there. And there's just the whole graphics. So as a designer, I like to go to other trade shows, stores, anything, to just get inspiration. And I was in Palo Alto, and I saw this magazine had about graphics. And there was a guy that did skis. And I'm like, skis? I didn't know graphics had, skis had graphics. Well, there's a whole science to it. I tracked down the guy. I said, hey, we developed this, I patented this silk screening methodology. Huh. So those that don't know, it's screened on the inside, and then it's molded. And that's really been a breakthrough. I have a buddy, Chris Springer, has Ferraris, and they paint clear on it, and then they sand it. They paint clear, they sand it. It's 20 coats of clear. Well, I kind of came up with that finish the same way, and it really was able to do it super light. And we hired a ski company to do our graphics. So there was a year that we just had the whole line of graphics. Yeah. So you wouldn't normally do that, but from top to bottom. And it just was a game changer. Yeah. It was like everybody had to step up. Their competitors came to us and go, oh man, you guys are just killing it. So we had the Rock Lock, we had different variations. Yep. I think they're on Rock Lock 7 now or something. And yeah, so that's it. There's quite a few innovations there.
Okay, so we're going to open up to Q&A session. So if anyone here or Nick, I don't know how that technology side works, but anyone have any questions for Jim about?
Yeah.
Where did the logo come from? Did you do that?
Oh, that's a cool story. So being a designer, I did some graphic classes and stuff, and I came up with different names. When you do design work, you make a matrix and you weigh it. And I had Arriva and I had about 8 or 9 names. And Giro was, I was inspired by Vigorelli. My buddy Bob Muzzy started Vigorelli Clothing. And I'm like, you can name something after Italian stuff. And I saw, the Giro d'Italia. I'm like, Giro's kind of cool. So I started sketching different logos. And actually goes back to the San Jose Bike Club. I was working on these stick figures from, if I go at the Olympics that were in Canada, they had all those. And I still have the sketches, and I started doodling, and I'm like, wait a minute. The ultimate is going across the finish line with your arms up and kicking everybody's butt. And I was like, you know what? They're probably going to say gyro, but I don't care. This is it. And it's very rare that you get the name and a logo together. Very few companies have that. I mean, it just doesn't happen. So.
Cool. Anyone else?
Material-wise, have you ever tested anything out that you ended up not using that you thought was really cool for the interior or even the exterior of the shell?
Different, you mean types of interior on the helmet?
Or material-wise.
Oh, materials. Yeah, we did look at other. I don't know exactly. We pretty much were. Yeah, early on I looked at some various things, but once the company got going, we did change different foams and stuff, different colors, but I don't think, it's pretty amazing material. EP polystyrene.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're talking about helmets, but could you talk a little bit about some other firsts that Giro did? Barbells?
Oh gosh, yeah. But I didn't bring all that stuff, but being a creative person, you're always solving problems. We did the little tool, one of the first compact tools called the Pocket Shop. That was pretty cool. And then, I kind of revolutionized the big mouth bottle. Back in the day, we just put Coke in there, and I'm like, God, this gets all over my bike. I got to fix this. And so I looked at and you can't get the ice in those TA bottles. You're cracking the ice. The race is about to start. You're pouring Coke in there. Coke's fizzing up. It's all over your bike. Like, I think there's a better solution. So the bottle rocket was the
One
outcome.
more question, and
Yeah.
then we're gonna go.
Jim, you mentioned the finish line,
Yeah.
arms up, but I don't see that anywhere.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's yeah. So there's the guy's head. Here's his two arms. Well, it's just this, yeah. But from the side, it kind of looks like a bike. So
All right.
I see it.
Actually, one more. Andrew,
I see it now. but, yeah.
Andrew, go ahead.
Jim, you have a long history in cyclocross. I'm curious if that background influenced any of your product design.
I'm going to get to the motocross thing real quick because I grew
Real
up
quick, we gotta go, but go ahead.
BMX racing. My buddies all raced motocross, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to kill myself if I go like this. I stuck with bikes, and
You raced BMX?
yeah, but we just did our own mini motos, we call them.
Yeah.
And Neil Snarr, and Brad Lackey, went and watched him race and stuff. But I got invited up to do this race at Carlsbad, the Carlsbad Grand Prix, which we talked about, and going down the thing and the hills. It's a motocross course on a mountain bike.
We raced each other.
Yeah, and the helmet's bouncing all around. So when Liz said, what can you do about that? I'm like, oh man, I know exactly what I could do. I got to fix that problem. They was hitting your glass and stuff. So that's my motocross thread that I was there during the early days of mountain bike racing and motocross, really.
Yeah.
Two cross. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, Jim, I know saving lives and safety means nothing to you, but for the,
Hey now.
or means little to you, but just for the sake of everyone whose lives you've saved and enhanced and made look better and enjoyed more, because it's all about being on a bicycle is like suffering less.
Yeah.
For so many people, for some probably like Willerton, it's suffering more, but you've done so well with this, and it just for the sake of the safety thing. It's always my thing for like disc brakes. Poo-poo them all you want, but at the end of the day, to me,
Yeah.
better braking, no matter where it is or how complicated or heavy it is, it's safer for people.
Right,
And
yeah.
the safer people are out there, the longer they can keep riding. So thank you very much for
Thanks, Zach.
revolutionizing.
Got to wear your helmet. That's the truth.
I've got a question here. Cameron's
Oh.
asking about talking of safety, the switchblade. When you guys came out with the
Switchblade?
the
Switchblade?
full face-
Switch black.
full face helmet.
With the changeable jaw piece, yeah. I was not there at that point.
That
but-
was post Gentes.
Yeah, but that shows that one of the neat things is when you leave your company, I sold it in 96, is are you, did you make a difference? Are they still carrying on? And they were, creative people are creative, and they came up with that.
Another Q&A session.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank
Anyways,
you.
thank you, Jim.
You
Thank
bet,
so
man.
much.
Thank you.
Okay, here we are with guest number 2, Craig Calfee. Craig's a guy a little bit outside the realm of stuff in terms of like this whole motorcycle fixation we can't seem to get rid of, but he does have a little bit of it. But just on a personal note, this is a guy, like if everyone saw the movie with Russell Crowe, A Beautiful Mind, this is the guy who, to me, nothing against you, KB, you're beautiful, but a beautiful mind. And I've had a boy crush on this guy ever since I met him, in terms of just every time I talk to him, he just takes me to a different place mentally and philosophically, spiritually, because he's got one of the most interesting life stories. And it just, in terms of the way he thinks about the bicycle and the things he'll come up with just an answer to a question. It'll blow my mind, because it's like so non-bicycle centric thinking, And eventually, but carbon, and then again, this is part of, we brought Calfee into it because, again, as we started, was with everybody, it was like this whole kind of Greg LeMond thing, and we'll get to it, but I mean, even beyond that, the bike industry right now, as we're all enjoying this, the fixation of, carbon fiber, and as far as I'm concerned, O and the motherfucking G for carbon fiber right there, and this is an example of it, which is ghastly to look at, and you look at it, you just think, look at me like, what's wrong with it? I don't know, I think it looks fine. But this is like this earliest carbon fiber bike, all carbon. He made it himself, and so many times like the Look bikes get credited for being the carbon bikes, and there's others, but they had aluminum lugs, titanium lugs, steel lugs, whatever. But this is all carbon, and from this kind of wretched looking thing, sorry, became this beautiful creation, and then even more, you know, in the Calfee catalog today, it's just still quintessentially some of the most beautiful carbon fiber bikes. And with every bike is a story behind it for his engineering in terms of what he's trying to advance for the person riding the bike. And then of course there's a whole bamboo story as well, which just takes this whole concept of bicycles to me on a human level, and in terms of humanity and what he's trying to do with building bikes in Africa to a higher level where all bicycles really should be. So, Craig Calfee, welcome.
Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, sure, yeah, great. So just real quickly, just get the dates and the history. Mid-'80s, you were working for an outrigger company with carbon fiber.
Yeah, I was working for composite engineering,
Yeah.
making rowing shells and flat water kayaks. And these are high performance boats racing in the Olympics. We even got gold medals in the '88 Olympics on the kayaks that we shaped and built for the athletes, for the Olympic Committee. And during that time, while I was working in the shop, I was in charge of braiding tubes. So I was literally making my own carbon tubing on a 72 carrier braider. And you'd sit at this braider, and it's kind of a boring job. You're just monitoring a machine and pulling caterpillars out of it and making sure everything's working. But I was also fascinated with making the tubes faster and better and how you could orient the fiber. I mean, I was kind of spacing out and geeking out on fiber orientation. So I also thought at the time, I was riding a Schwinn Varsity and enjoyed riding to work. I didn't have a car at the time. I was art school dropout, just trying to make my way in the world. But I thought it'd be great to make a bike out of this stuff sometime. It just was there for a year and a half. And then I had an incredible dramatic crash on the Schwinn Varsity. And I actually bent the frame such that it was unrideable. And if you know a Schwinn Varsity, you know how hard it is. And that's, if anyone wants to hear a crash story, I got that one for you. But this was, all this really was I needed a bike for myself. I had no dreams of making a bike company or getting Greg LeMond to race on it or anything. I wanted to try to build a bike out of this weird material. And so I didn't spend a lot of time making it pretty, I just wanted it to be functional. And I was using a method, a compression molding method, using metal dies. In this case, they were plastic because I didn't have metalworking tools to use. I used a wood spade bit on plastic blocks to make the molds. It's very rough, but it worked. I ended up using it myself, and then I had my girlfriend's brother, who was bigger than I, actually fit it better because I built a little too big. Because the Schwinn Varsity it replaced also had a high top tube. And when I was a bike messenger in New York, I liked the high top tube because you'd sit on it at stoplights.
Yeah.
And you'd take your wear off because your butt gets sore after 8 hours of riding. But it fit him better, and he was also a courier in Boston. And he was quite big, so he was testing it, and he did actually wear a helmet too, which was kind of interesting. It was unusual. This is in the late 80s.
Yeah.
So people didn't wear helmets, but he did. Because he wasn't sure the bike was safe. So,
Go figure.
You know, it was like pretty experimental. And he tested it, I tested it, I took it out in the woods. I had a little bit bigger tires, and I took it like a cyclocross bike. So I was really kind of trying to break it.
Did you wear a cup too?
No cups involved. Just really trying to break it, and it didn't break. But the thing that really impressed people when I showed it to bike racers is you can, pick it up with one finger.
A little bit lighter than the Varsity.
Yeah, so that was the most impressive thing about it that people were shocked with. And I got a lot of encouragement to go ahead and go into the bike business. I'm really onto something. So I decided to quit my job. Well, first I offered to start building bikes with my boss, who helped coach me on how to build this.
Yeah.
And he was too busy with the Olympic Committee contract. And I also asked for a raise. I wanted $10 an hour. And because I was literally doing everything in the shop. I loved working with carbon fiber, and I came up with new innovations for the boats, came up with a bike, first carbon fork, first carbon stem, first carbon seat post. I was just going wild with this, falling in love with the material. And
just real quick, just make sure, date about what,
87, 88.
Yeah.
So in 88, I quit the job and decided to move to California where the weather's better for cycling year round. And I thought if I was going to start a bike company, California is the place to be. So I moved to San Francisco, got a loan from my mom who didn't have any extra money. She had to mortgage the farm. So literally put the farm up as collateral. And for $10,000, and I had metal molds made this time, so had a machinist who became a mentor as well. He really got enamored with what I was trying to do, so he helped me. I learned a lot about machining from him, and then built some prototypes that were pretty much that level of finish. And we were watching the just to transition. I could go on, just interrupt anytime you want, because I'll just spin it out.
Eric, can you get that fetch that photo out there?
Oh yeah, the one with Greg on it.
Yeah.
So during the 1990 tour, when he won this right after 89, he won in 90. We were watching the tour, my production guys, and we were all, and he was riding the carbon tube aluminum lug bikes, and we were poo-pooing those because we'd seen them breaking and coming unglued, and we knew about galvanic corrosion.
Yeah.
And we said, our bikes are good enough to ride in the tour. Like, we just had that pride and knowledge and confidence that our bikes are better than what they're riding in the tour. Like, we literally had something better than what Greg LeMond was riding. And we thought, oh, he's got a contract with a bike sponsor, and you know, how could you possibly get Greg LeMond to ride on your bike? I mean, we're just a garage south of Market, San Francisco. I mean, just
Bunch of hippies.
Yeah, 5 or 6 guys and a gal, and it was like a dream to try to get him to. Oh yeah, that guy there. Yeah. Anyway, JP Pascal, the Time Pedals rep, stumbled into our shop one day and said, "Oh my God, you need to send one of these bikes to Greg's dad in Reno to just look at. Do you have any frames I can send him?" I said, "Well, yeah, here's one." And so he sent it to Bob. Bob calls me up the next day because he overnighted it to Reno. He said, "Yeah, we'd like you to build one for Greg LeMond, for Greg to test out." I said, "Oh, awesome. Like, sure." Because they were actually having trouble with those bikes, and they couldn't supply enough of them, and there was issues with the bikes they were riding. So we built one bike, this one right here, and we built that in 2 days, and Ed Litton painted it in 3 days, and it was super exciting to ship this off and have it get sent to France, and you know, kind of the rest is history at that point.
What was that history about Paris-Nice?
Yeah, so that's a whole nother story. It arrives at the service course, and the head tube ended up being too long for Greg. He actually runs a much shorter head tube. So they didn't tell us his head tube length, so we just built kind of a standard one. But he said, you know, I'll race it at the last stage of Paris-Nice in the uphill time trial. And he's not wearing a helmet there because it's an uphill ride. And so he takes it for a spin, or takes it for a race. He's racing, although he's not positioned to win it. He was like 7th or 8th place at that time. So he tested out for climbing because all the carbon bikes that he ever rode were too flexy. He just didn't. That was the worst part about it. And so he really liked how stiff it was. I was at the top of the hill with Julian De Vries as mechanic. I rode in the team car up to the top with him, and we were waiting for Greg. He comes up, finishes his race. He comes over, and he's just like, "That is the best climbing bike I've ever been on." Like, he was just gushing about how great it was.
Yeah.
And so I was all happy, and then he's like, "And in fact, but I want to see how it descends, so I'm going to take it down the mountain, and I'll meet you guys at the hotel, all right?" And Julian is like, "Is this bike safe?" are we going to lose the current reigning world champion,
Yeah.
reigning three-time Tour de France winner on the backside of the mountain back? It's like, he was really nervous. And Greg's like, don't worry about it. I got this. Don't worry. I'll see you guys at the hotel. And Julian was just silent. He was just he's kind of an angry old school mechanic. He's Eddie Merckx's old
Very
mechanic.
angry.
Tough guy to work with, but once you're on his good side, he's great. Anyway, so we're waiting at the hotel, and Greg rolls up on it, and he's just got this huge smile on his face. He says, it's not only the best climbing bike I've ever ridden, it's the best descending bike as well. I carved those corners so tight. This is it. We need 18 of them for each member of the team. So measure every bike, every of the team bikes like yourself, and get to work because we need them for the tour. So I was like, all right, I guess I'm going to be busy for a while. And Julian was like, all right, you got it made now, because when Greg says he wants it, it just goes.
Did they buy them?
Yeah, they paid for them actually. Yeah, we gave him a deal. It was a good deal, but we didn't lose money, that's for sure. But definitely, he out, and so then it was convincing the rest of the teammates to ride the bike. And the guy, this is a quick story, but Johan Lammerts his nickname is L'autobus, the bus. Mm-hmm. He's the biggest guy in the peloton, and it was the biggest bike we built at that time. And he got it, and when I heard this story from Greg actually. Johan picks up the bike, he's like, it's too light, I'm going to break it. He's like, no, come on, Johan, just try it, please. It's a Le Mans sponsored bike. He's like, I'll be back in a few minutes. And he gets on the bike and he goes out and he starts sprinting on it, and he's just really working the frame. And he goes out, comes back quite a bit later. He goes, this is amazing. Wow. I can't believe this bike. It's just so light and stiff. So Johan ended up convincing the rest of the team that it was a good enough bike for them to race. Because it just felt too light. They couldn't believe how light it was.
Yeah. So for the sake of kind of going back to what Rick and I, the seed of this whole thing, talked about Santa Cruz, and just for the sake of it, you did, when we're talking about stuff, you did mention like you knew about Kestrel, because Kestrel's also in Watsonville. So just in terms of like, there was another carbon fiber bike brand, and like, what was that like? That was at the time, like, what was that like with? I mean, because no one was doing carbon fiber. Soon we had like some carbon fiber bikes. Or like, I mean, I just saw a thing with, Scott and Nicole had a carbon fiber bike, but of course it was with metal lugs, and even Specialized had the Epic, then later on metal lugs, titanium lugs, whatever, but this was of its own variety.
This allowed us to do custom geometry, and that's what Greg needed. Greg actually tried a Kestrel, but they couldn't do a custom frame for him.
Cheers. Huh. What was your sense in the industry? I mean, because now now it's like someone mentions aluminum or steel and we kind of scoff like, what is that? But I mean, I'm guessing back in late '80s, for you to mention carbon fiber in the way it was probably like the same thing, like carbon fiber, like you're 20 years early before its time.
It's a little bit like how some people look at e-bikes. They scoff at the old man bike or the whatever, the geriatric, whatever. There's this attitude about it, and back then it was like, oh, what are you riding a plastic bike for? It's just so the plastic bike thing. Was that hung around, but in '91, after Greg was giving us publicity about carbon, I got interviewed in Bicycling magazine, and I said, all the bikes in the Tour de France will be made of carbon fiber. And 9 years later, it actually did happen.
Yeah. And it's like one of the big kind of like the ironies of Calfee to me is like, so again, he has this whole thing with Greg LeMond, Tour de France. I mean, the Tour de France, it's the apogee of everything. And then, the thing that I get so misty-eyed about is when he tells me, when he introduces the bamboo bikes, and his story about going through Africa, and you can tell that story real quickly, but just like one quick aside, I remember when I was at Road Bike Action, the magazine I was at, and I had one of his road bikes there, a bamboo road bike, and I remember the day, like, of all people, Gary Fisher came by to visit, and he's like looking at the bike. And typical Fisher, right? First thing he does, he's like, what does it weigh? And I'm just like, Gary, that's not the point. It's not. It's it's just like stop being the bike dork like that, And that's what again the magic of Calfee to me is. He's just like he's so quickly and ably and capably goes beyond being a bike dork and does this whole African thing, which is like you're like a bicycle missionary to me, in terms of what you've done. And he tells a story about these people that, would take them 5 days to get from one place to the other to go fetch water or something, and then all of a sudden the bicycle, thanks to him, the bicycle. It's just how you're changing lives. So what was the basic the Congo, and then it became
Yeah, so I went to Pratt Institute in New York, and I was there for 3 years, and I decided I needed content for my art. I was a sculpture major. And so I decided to go traveling for a year. I'm out of here, I want to go see the world. I'd never actually been out in the world, aside from just college dorms, So I started hitchhiking around Europe during the summer, and then I ended up on a boat in Greece, a sailboat, because I used to sail. And I ended up in East Africa and then crossed Central Africa and got on a freighter and went to Brazil. And so that whole year of travel, which, by the way, I wrote a book about, which I have some copies if anyone's interested. I wrote this book about that whole trip based on letters I wrote to my mom. And I was treated so well in Africa. I just had this affinity. The people of Africa, especially in the most remote areas, you can see what they need. And as a designer, as an engineer, I'm intrigued by solving problems, and they have so many problems to solve. So you kind of think, what would be the best thing here? And bicycles, they use bikes a lot, and they have a lot of bamboo. I thought, well, why not bamboo bikes in Africa? Just seems like a good fit. And so I got some help with Columbia University. We did a feasibility study in Ghana. And we went out there and taught people how to build bamboo bikes, and like bamboo, it just spread from there. It's now in, I think, 7 countries in Africa and 4 in Asia. I've been to Africa dozens of times. Recently was in Gabon last fall, did a project there. But yeah, all over the place. Just like the way bamboo spreads, the idea of a locally grown bamboo bike to solve transport issues in Africa. It just touched a nerve with people who want to spend money on supporting that project, so not too hard to get funded for that, and it's something I really enjoy doing.
Yeah, and they're doing it there, in places.
Yeah, there's a factory in Ghana now, shipping bikes to Europe by the container load.
Of their own, or are they Calfee, or like?
No, they're their own brands.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, I teach them about business a little bit, sourcing. I've sourced parts from Taiwan for them.
Yeah.
I work the whole angle because it takes a lot of angles to build a bike.
Is there any comparison between bamboo and carbon in terms of building or designing a frame?
The vibration damping is the biggest feature that they both share. They're really cool that way. The fact that you can mold carbon tubing, make carbon tubing in any dimension you want with a much less expensively than metal tubing. Bamboo, you can go grow whatever dimension and wall thickness you want. So that's the accessibility for a designer of whatever diameter wall thickness you want is really great.
Is it? Cause I remember talking to another guy who was doing his own bamboo bikes, and he would talk about going to a bamboo farm and sort, kind of doing flicking in terms of wall thickness.
Yeah, picking out your bamboo.
It's one of my different types of bamboo.
Yeah, it's my favorite activity. Go bamboo hunting. Yeah.
Well, there it is. See, there it is. Right
there. I thought that the bamboo came from your dog outside of your shop.
Well, that was the first bamboo bike. That's how I kind of got inspired to build, to realize that bamboo was tough enough for a bike. I was basically at Interbike, probably talking to you at some point at one of the booths, and people would bring weird bikes made of weird materials, like beer cans. Who was it? Brew bike. Somebody made a beer can bike. You've seen them. So I was like, I got to do that too, to just get attention for my bikes. So I thought, what weird material can I build a bike out of? And I thought, how about bamboo? Just long story short, I was playing stick with my dog, and she was a pit bull lab mix, and she clamped down on this piece of bamboo, and I would swing her around. the way you can with pit bulls. And it wouldn't break. I was expecting it to just snap in her mouth and maybe give her splinters or something. But it didn't break. I mean, even with teeth marks gouging into it, which is, carbon is sensitive to, it's notch sensitive is the term. So it's not notch sensitive. So it's like, even with a big old gouge in it, it still doesn't break. So that just kind of gave me the idea that it is strong enough for a bike. They had built them back in the late 1800s, so why not?
Yeah.
What's the problem?
Yeah.
So coming up with the fiber wrapping method, the challenge was the joining of the bamboo, not the bamboo itself.
Right.
So I built one for Interbike and got tons of attention, and the bike actually rode rather well. It was a little flexy because I didn't have access to bigger diameter bamboo. So the second bamboo bike I built was awesome, and just kind of went from there.
Yeah. So just kind of wrapping up and taking us back to, like, again, where I was starting, like, what is it about the bicycle in typical Calfee fashion when we're talking about it one time? I may have even asked him the question, and I remember what you said is like, like, what is it about the bicycle? And you said it's like this, wonderfully reliable, simple thing. And he said something to the effect like, I mean, just look how many bicycles are stolen every year. That's the answer right there about how great a bicycle is, because so many of them are stolen, And of course, I'm on the phone. I'm like, oh my God, there's another fucking Calfeeism, I'm just like, awesome.
It's true, yeah. No, they're the most stolen item you can imagine, aren't they? So that's got to be a pretty good thing.
And there you have it. Are there any questions for Craig Calfee, the godfather of carbon fiber bicycles?
Where do you think the future is in frame materials?
Bamboo, yeah. I mean, carbon's great. I love it, of course. But from a sustainability perspective, bamboo is so close in terms of performance and function that for the average person, bamboo is perfectly suitable. We're developing a bamboo cargo bike, electric assist, so even if it's a little heavier, who cares? There's so many great things about it. It's just we're, again, ahead of our time. And as we look around and see how we're, consuming energy and polluting the air and the water, it's nice to come up with something useful that grows out of the ground. So that's my take on it.
Yeah.
Andrew?
So many brands started building carbon bikes here in the U.S., whether it's Allied or Harley or even Trek and Specialized. What was your process in continuing to be successful in domestic production, and did you ever consider going offshore?
We looked at going offshore many years ago, but so many other people were doing it. And the Made in USA thing seemed like a good idea, but I was proved wrong when Kestrel, went offshore, and then the brand pretty much evaporated. I thought, oh, great, our main competitor is going to China. And so the Made in USA folks are going to come flocking to me. No, they didn't. We didn't see a big increase in sales after that. So that wasn't a big thing. The main thing, though, was being able to do custom and being agile in developing new products and as quickly as possible, and develop bar stems and all kinds of other stuff. So I just liked having the production here and to be super quick. We came up with a UDH derailleur hanger dropout like within a week of it showing up, like no problem. So through axle, no problem. Boom, done. So electronic shifting, internal wiring, all that stuff. We were pretty much right on it. So
Today, do people come to you because they know you're still built in the U.S. or California?
Some people do. There's a certain element of that, but that's not a big factor.
But just to bring it back to Lamond, this morning he told me a story, because I always make fun of him, because every time I'll ask him about bike stuff, he starts talking about tandems. I'm like, tandems? God, who cares? Like, it's like trials bikes and tandems. Who cares? Lo and behold, so he starts talking about, and he just got the biggest order from someone in Kazakhstan to buy 20,
10 bikes.
10 bikes.
5 road bikes and 5 track bikes.
Yeah, carbon fiber, and he says it's the biggest order he had since Greg LeMond's order. And so it's
Yeah.
just like
Single order from
single-
a single
yeah.
team, yeah.
What
so.
does that have to do with tandems?
They're all tandem
all
bikes.
tandems.
Yeah. 10 tandems, high-end ones. These are like Dura-Ace, like
Yeah,
money's no object.
sweet.
Full circle.
Yeah, here we are. And that was
Yeah.
this morning.
Yeah,
I got that.
He just closed the
know,
deal this
like,
morning.
what? Okay, cool.
Hey, can you pay for my well repair?
Yeah, help you out there.
There's another question.
During COVID, you guilted me into building a bamboo bike. Never forgive you for that. And I really enjoy that bike. But coming back to your idea about the wrapping, you said the hard part was wrapping it. I wanted to hear the different materials you used, because you ended up with hemp, or that's what I was using on mine that you
Yeah.
suggested. And also you were using epoxy that was, you could work on it without any mask.
Yeah,
Tell us a little more about that.
yeah, we're using hemp fiber instead of carbon for the hand wrap parts, and we use a plant-based epoxy. So it's really 100% plant-based and fully biodegradable.
Nice.
And you do have a kit for that? Did you sell any of us bamboo?
Yeah, we kind of tapered off on the kits, but we did for a while do a kit where you could
DIY.
build your own
Yeah.
bamboo bike. Now we do it, our tooling is a little higher level, so it's more for groups, a little more expensive kit, and then you have to source your own bamboo.
Right.
So we still do it, but just on a sort of larger scale.
Okay. Anyways, that's it for the Craig Calfee chapter. Thank you very much. Awesome as always.
Thank you.
Let's take a break. Let's take a break. 5-minute break. Yeah, well, when you gotta go. Okay. Okay, chapter 2, second half of the show, and this is Jim Turner, kind of a bit of an outlier in this crew of bicycle people, specifically in terms of original roots and everything. Again, another personal aside, but I mean, I knew about Jim Turner long before I became involved with his brother and this little small company called Rock Shocks and everything. But Jim Turner, motocross guy, Canadian national champion, Team Suzuki in 79? 76. Oh, that's right, earlier RMs by 79, it was a Honda. So anyways, I mean, I would look through Motocross Action magazine. I still remember the picture of him on the start line in Canada and the Suzuki jersey, you know, and I was like, I had like no clue who he was. And then again, just coming back to this intersection that Rick and I sort of discovered, Santa Cruz, motorcycles, bicycles, genius, creativity. It's like all these guys we've been talking to today all come from that intersection, that crosswalk of genius, invention, vision, creativity, passion. So Jim Turner, famous motorcycle rider, not a great motorcycle rider, but he was famous. But he was Canadian national champion 2 times, you know, and then 3-time national champion.
Snuck one in while you were sleeping.
Yeah. And then again, just part of the connection, KB, Keith Bontrager, you know, this is like, there's this famous photo, you'll see it coming up here, when Keith Bontrager, famous Keith Bontrager Bicycles, was the mechanic for Jim when they went to Europe on the Motocross Fox team on a Honda. And so anyways, again, it's just this intersection that connects us all, that Rick really kind of like started like bubbling in his mind, you know, just like, God, there's this thing we have, this thread, right? Jim Turner. So he's here not because he's a motocross guy and we're going to talk about, you know, him racing in the GPs or anything like that, which we certainly can. But Jim, there's another photo. It's just, again, another connection. In like the mid-'80s, he gets one of the earliest road bikes from Bontrager, and there's the picture of him riding it coming up. And so again, a bicycle guy way back then, comes from this Turner family, which is like this a family of geniuses, like all of them. You know, the brothers are all like, you know, you can talk about it. And of course, Paulie with, you know, Rock Shocks, you know, started Rock Shocks. So why are you here? Let's get to that.
Because you invited me.
Why are you here? Yeah. And the notion that So you know, you're this famous motorcycle guy, and you know, you talked about working at Ford and everything like that, and then lo and behold, and this is, I'd like you to tell that story, like, you know, you're just working at Ford and doing all this other stuff, but at some point, way early on, way before e-bikes became a thing, you decide, I think, was it 95 or something like that? Like when you first had that first idea about an e-bike?
You know what's funny is, you know, remember the connection, Jim McGreen from Prototype.
Yeah.
So he was and he had designed a little add-on motor for an electric bike. He got out of that and got into that.
Yeah.
And that was my first e-bike I bought when my kids were little. And I started riding that around. And I thought, this is a really neat idea, because I had my kid on a tag-along.
KB.
Yeah.
Turner.
A little different then. All the Turners.
Yeah.
So, you know, I rode that, and then I thought this is really neat as a form of transportation, because I was always bicycle commuting and touring and that. And then I got thinking, well, I could do this. This is really up my wheelhouse of motors, and I was designing semiconductor equipment and motors and all this stuff. I go, this would be pretty easy for me. And with a bicycle background and motorcycle background, I thought, this is good. So I started on that.
And what year was that?
That would be like 95.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you said you talked about changing the idea kind of quickly from like hub motor.
Oh yeah. So my initial idea was a hub motor, because from an engineering standpoint, that was the most efficient means of transferring the power. So I hired a motor designer to do that. And he came back after a couple of iterations. He goes, this is a really stupid idea. And I'm not going to work on it anymore, because it's going to be big and heavy and it's dumb. And I was crushed. I go, oh man, I was going to be the great inventor of this e-bike. And then I was out on a road bike ride one day, and I'm climbing a hill, and it just dawned on me, the bike is the most efficient means of transportation made. Don't mess with that. Do it in parallel. And that's when I came up with the idea of the motor in the bottom bracket, because that utilizes all the efficiencies of the bicycle without trying to bastardize it. Don't mess with something that's good. And so that's where that aha moment came.
There you go. Yeah. And then from there, what was those kind of like the next baby steps to kind of?
Well, I kind of built a very crude prototype. I don't know if there's a picture of it there. And then in like 96 or so, I built this one, which was actually an all-in-one unit, the first motorized bottom bracket.
And we talked about just quickly, then there's also Iacocca had his bike later, even later than yours. And I can't remember.
That was what, the early 2000s,
yeah,
late 90s.
And then GT came out with their version, which came and went really quickly.
Yeah, and then we talked to Iacocca, and he was going to buy the company, I think, in 2000. And then that kind of fell apart at the last minute. He couldn't get any funding. And he was actually using our bike to go to venture capitalists and try and raise money.
So what was so where are we at now in terms of, I do, at any moment like back then, you know, because you're still, this is like like Craig with carbon fiber, you're decades before it became a thing, you know. So steadfast, what was it? And you told me too, it's like, you know, you said like as a former racer, you know, you have this keen sense of tenacity, because I'm just like, why are you like, you know.
You mean we like to take abuse?
Just be, you like to be abused, yeah. But here you are, so you started with that, but then all of a sudden, this is an incredible piece of machinery here. It's just amazing. And I visited you in 2015, long ago, when you were kind of still, you were already Optibike and everything, but this has already come even so much further than then, you know. So sort of what's got you to where you are now with the Optibikes you're selling now?
I just, this passion, I think that everybody spoke about it, and relentlessness to build the best there is. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, I think it's an amazing product, and just always trying to think about how it can be better and how it can be better. And that's what I've seen sort of in the industry, that we started things like this long before anyone else, and everyone has kind of learned from that. Like I used to have to fight with a hub motor was better than a mid-drive, you know, and there was this argument, and I was like, no, there isn't an argument, but there's still people, and that kind of dropped by, and so we kind of move ahead. And one of the things now is like with torque, like suddenly with DJI, they've discovered that more torque is better, and we've had 190 newton meters of torque for 7 years. It wasn't like new to us.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
we were
yeah.
doing it long ago, and now because it's sort of the mainstream, now they're all looking at it.
Can you just tell us quickly then, like what is Optibike right now? Like what in terms of what the bike is, and a little bit about this, like the company you're
Yeah, we're just a small. I do it. My sons have grown up in it. They're the two of them, and now they're the integral part. And we live in a small town in Colorado, and we design these things and we build them one at a time. Part of my thing from racing is when you're a factory rider, your bikes are built just for you. Or that picture of Keith when Keith built that bike for me, remember? And he built every part on the picture of that bike. I mean, the swing arms, everything. But it was that last 5% or something that made the difference between winning and losing.
This one.
Yeah, Keith built every part, the forks he machined down, and built that swing arm, built the pipe,
pitching.
built everything, and that's another story.
Yeah.
But that would make the difference, and that's what I try and bring, because the sort of mass-produced, you lose that, and I always love that part of it. So we try and do that. We build a bike custom for people, and the thing about an electric bike is it adds a huge, larger level of degrees of freedom about what the bike does. With a regular bicycle, you just have the human. It's like a motorcycle. That motor adds all these other variables that you tune with, and how do you deliver torque, and how do you do that? That doesn't happen on a regular bicycle. And the frame works differently, the suspension works differently, because it's got a motor, and then you got the interaction of the human with the motor. So it's a lot more complicated. It opens up a huge, broad spectrum
Right.
of how a bike can be.
Right. It's just interesting just thinking that, the bike that Bontrager built for you and that Honda to go to Europe in ’79, and then this other photo of you on a bike that Bontrager built for you,
Yes.
your road bike. And just like, again, it's just, all the way, the fabric that binds us together, Because you said you were going to go, like, you had an idea to like ride around the world with your wife.
Yeah, in 1990, we put everything in storage and took off to ride around the world for a year on there weren't Bontragers, there were mountain bikes, but yeah.
And then, so the bike now we're looking at, again, what is Optibike is, you're like, what are you selling, what are you making? Even though Nick says we're not here to sell anything.
Well, this is the bike, our current new model
Right.
we're just coming out with. It's the next evolution of bikes.
Yeah. And what are the features? I mean, why should anyone think about an Optibike? What is it you're offering that's different or special about your bike?
Well, we tend to have more power, more torque, more sustained power. We run bigger batteries, because one of my big things is I don't want to drive to a trail and then ride. I
Yeah.
want to ride to the trail and be able to ride and then ride home. So it's more of like what really works in the real world. And we're different because, again, we're small volume, like a racing team. We build more of an appropriate thing versus a mass-produced product. And so we have other features because of that.
What kind of mileage range?
These are like 100, 150, I think.
Whoa.
Yeah, yesterday how long was our ride yesterday was what? 30, and I used about 30% of the battery, but I was riding with conventional bikes, but
Does it weigh 80 pounds?
it weighs more, it's 70 pounds.
Yeah.
And one thing I meant is I learned that the weight of an e-bike is different than the weight of a bicycle, because you have a motor, and that changes all the rules, because bikes are, like Jim was talking about, efficiency, and they're all about efficiency, right, because of the human element. And when you take the e-bike, you kind of have to go, oh wait, none of that stuff matters anymore, because it's more about comfort and what people are really doing, durability. So all the rules are kind of turned around. And maybe that's the motocross background. Again, you come in a little bit different thinking about it.
Yeah.
So I approach the bike differently than maybe some of the industry does.
If I could interject, because he sent that bike to me and I've ridden it a few times. Just a little, maybe come back to this, Jim. The 4 different modes, like class 1, class 2, class 3 moto. And then the other thing I would say, with the motocross background, the way this thing handles so neutrally, because how he's positioned the weight relative to the suspension and what we would call the spindle, the center point of the bike. It rides like a 25-pound mountain bike. You don't feel the bike underneath you. So you don't feel the weight.
Yeah, and that's the thing is weight can be an advantage, right, on some of the downhill. It's not as good for jumping and popping things, but it can be an advantage of stability. And so with the motor, it doesn't have a detriment going, as Greg would tell you, up the hill, you know. The one thing I noticed on the ride yesterday is in the beginning, I go, these guys are going pretty fast up these hills, you know, and I'm having to kind of try. And then at the end, they're all kind of dropping back, you know, and we can go a lot faster. But
So the 4 modes?
Oh, the forefront. So we've done a lot of the forefront. Like I did the pat 20 years ago. In 2020, I had patents issued on like the battery in the frame and the motorized bottom bracket, automatic shifting, the whole thing. I patented like everything kind of is done today, and they expired. And so one of the things we're always looking at, well, what makes a better thing? And we came up with this display called the multi-mode, because e-bikes have this class 1, 2, 3, which I think is a real impediment, because if you want to ride to the trail, you don't want to ride at 20 miles an hour.
Right.
So we made this display that you can click 1, 2, 3, or moto mode, which is a real high power. It's like a 1700 watts. So if you get to a forest service road or where motorcycles could ride, you can do all these different features. So it amplifies where you can use a bike. You're not just limited. Because one of my big things is, I think everyone shares, is bikes are neat, and how do you do it as an alternative car, not just for transportation. So if you can ride to the trailhead and then ride back, you've done something. I think it's a better experience for people, as well as environmentally.
Yeah, leave the truck in the driveway.
Yeah, instead of, whereas other people, they go, well, I drove to the trailhead because I can't ride to the trailhead, I have no battery left.
Sucks. Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of people are heavier and stuff like this, and that's why we have more power or more battery, because you know, they're not all little racer, you know,
Right.
like fit, super fit.
12 grand or something?
Yeah, they're 12 to 15.
Yeah.
So it must be kind of a weird to ask this question, because I mean, you were at the forefront and it originated much of this stuff. But in terms of like e-bikes, what have you seen like the biggest changes in terms of e-bike technology, where now versus any time before? I mean, is there anything out there?
Egotistical, like the mass production and all the players have come in, but the technology that this motor had, this was more powerful than most of the bikes today and things like that. So they've come along and added a lot of technology around it. But we were doing most of that, our bikes 20 years ago had the performance and capabilities or more than they have today. It's like we watch them kind of come along, but you go, why don't you just jump? You know, but there's a ceiling, just like in a motorcycle, with the laws of what you can do.
Yeah.
And so there's a ceiling, and everybody's getting tighter on that. So what we really try and offer is a different mode as a company than mass-produced bikes can give you.
Yeah. I think just quickly then, one of the things that kind of is just as of late noticed this week, you know, you're getting a bike for Jeremiah Bishop to race in the e-bike race this weekend. And it just brings me back to what, for a lot of us here, you know, we're all race motorcycles, whether it's racing motorcycles or like Gentes racing bicycles specifically, you know, but it's just like, to me, like I still haven't figured out what it is, but there's something that's so bitchin', you know, drives my girlfriend crazy. Like when I'm driving on the freeway, she's like, you know, I'll be passing them. I'm like, yeah, I passed that guy. She's like, it's not a race. I'm like, no, it is. You know, it's like, because it's like, it's always a race, you know?
Life's a race.
Yeah.
Life's a race.
I mean, it's still competition, you know, and you know, there's like this celebrated champion and you have this great history. So, I mean, I don't know, it just kind of, and not that, you know, you're going to start becoming a racing team and all that stuff, but I guess I'm trying to speak to is now you have Jeremiah on your bike this week, and I know you got excited about thinking about that. And I started, you know, telling you about when Jeremiah was at the Trek team, you know, with me and stuff, but there's something about, and again, with Gentes, you know, I mean, and everybody, it's just like this, like there's this innate thing about the intensity, the tenacity, and I know you spoke a little bit more to it about in terms of like, I'm still a racer at heart.
Well, that's one of the things that's been frustrating. When I listen to these guys talk about going to the Tour de France and winning the Tour de France, and when I started e-bikes, I go, there's no e-bike racing. And there still really isn't any e-bike racing. So that's that part of me that I would love to go out and put my bike out there and have it win, because that's that competitive, you know? And so this is why it's exciting. I go, wow, you know, because the e-bike hasn't ever taken off, so you never know.
I got a feeling it might happen this weekend.
Yeah, but that gives you the chance to, like when you win the Tour de France, you go, I'm the best. And they're talking about how they just dreamed of doing that.
Yeah.
And we haven't had that opportunity in e-bike racing. And so maybe if that happens, then, you know, we divert into that, because our bikes aren't really optimized for racing. We'd probably build a different one if it was purely racing. And it'd be really exciting if that happened, because that brings up that gotta win.
Yeah.
And, you know, the fire in you just gotta win. It's inbred in you as a racer. You're never good enough. You never quit.
Yeah.
You know, that was that thing about motocross, is you never quit. You never quit.
Here. Yeah. So, you know, you went, you know, from here, this RM, you know, air cooled, you know, 9 inches of travel, 10 inches of travel maybe. Then you went to, you know, KB's GP Honda, 13.5 inches of travel. And then, you know, you can see where we're at now, right? Single shocks, water cooling. I mean, you know, pretty stinking crazy. As far along as the e-bike is in terms of your bike specifically, maybe industry wide, do you see that any, like, you're a smart guy, do you see any like 5 years from now, 10 years, there's gonna be like the next evolution, the next step in terms of e-bikes, or you know, specifically? Is there still something out there that
those regulations really hold it back. And so everyone's getting about that, and they're learning. It's just like carbon fiber frames. They're learning how to do it better and better and better, and all that technology that batteries. I mean, we were the first battery company in the world to have a lithium-ion battery, and that was 2008. You know, we built those in Boulder, and nobody else had them for years. And we had a bigger battery than now has mass-produced.
Yeah.
They were bigger sized lithiums, and we were doing that then. So everyone's learning how to do that, and the technology is coming up, and stuff we had to build ourselves. We used to build our own controllers, everything we built, because nobody made it back then. So there's just a lot of impetus, and so it's getting better and better and better.
Yeah.
You know, you go to the motocross analogy, like a motocross bike, they're all the same, but every year they're innovating, but it's very slight.
Yeah.
The difference, you know, you're talking 5% maybe.
Yeah. It's just so interesting hearing that part. Everything you were doing in your element, and all I'm thinking about is Gentes telling a story about how he was like the same with his helmet. You know,
Yeah.
you couldn't think of two products more completely opposite of each other. This piece of foam, and then this complicated piece of everything, and yet both you guys are like systematically going through the same process of just like building your own, and just, you know, with a vision. And again, that's what this is really all of, a celebration between all of you four guys. Is just, again, that level of vision, creativity, tenacity, and it's really the spirit of which I think combines or connects all of us, you know, at some degree or another, just especially as fans of what you guys have done. So thanks very, well, go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying, we all share, right, is we're all doing it too. It's not a corporate thing. Like, you ride it, and that's in your mind. You know, we all share that.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, the evolution goes faster in the innovation, because, you know, they all talked about, they're out riding it, thinking about that. I'm out riding this, and every time I go riding, I come up with a new design, and, you know, because
you're doing it.
Yeah, you're doing it versus a corporate thing where you're not doing it. You know, the leaders.
Classic story. Well, thank you very much for coming. It's awesome, and thank you for contributing to the choice. Don't go anywhere. Is there any questions out there? Does anyone have questions for OG of the e-bike world? All good? Oh, there's one.
Quick question. Are you looking at any bikes that require motorcycle license plates? You know, that classification that's above into the scooter and motorized cycle?
I try and stay away from that, just the regulatory thing. It takes you into you have to be certified as a motorcycle manufacturer. And so it would take you into a different level of stuff. And I think the e-bike is neat because it doesn't require any of that thing. And like our multi-mode display, where you can go off-road and still ride that, but you can still be legal on the road without getting into that. I think it's a dividing line you get into. And we looked at doing like mini motocross bikes, you know, the Saran types a couple of years back. And I mean, I was going to build a motocross bike 20 years ago too. And just, you probably understand the lack of time, and you have a lot of visions. But that's why we've kind of stayed away from that, because it's a completely different animal.
You know, I'd like to encourage you, because I think it's a great story. First off, we do have the Q&A where if you have a question, we'll bring the four of them back together. This has been awesome. We're running extra long, which means it's working. But I want you to talk a little bit about the Ford experience, kind of the short story about, and the best anecdote of that for me is when you told the computer geeks in the Cray computer that you could walk inside the computer and they analyzed your electronic shock valve design, and you told them the data that came out of the computer was wrong. So could you please?
Yeah. I just briefly talked about when you do it, it's different, the seat of the pants. And so when I went to Ford to work on electronic shocks, and and they said to me, I had a design I want, and they said, well, you need to verify the design before you build a car. And so they said, go over to scientific research, and they had these PhD guys there, and they said, work with them to develop a formula that'll run on the Cray computer to analyze the shock. You mentioned Bernoulli's equation. We were using that a lot. Jim was. Yeah, and so went over there, worked all the equations out, and they, back then you had to wait a month to get on the Cray, and so a while later, they called me back, we got the solution, I walked over there, and they showed it to me, I go, it's wrong. There's no way my shock works like that. I said, I'm done, and I went back to my office. My manager called me and he says, you insulted the scientific community. These guys, they're all PhDs, and I go, they're wrong. They're just wrong. And he goes, how do you don't know that? And I go, it's wrong. And he goes, yeah. So, a month later, I get a call, and they call me and they said, hey, we redid those calculations, and we found out we had some math issues, and we ran that, and it's exactly the way you said it would be. And we want to know how you knew that. And I'm like, because you just feel it. Racing motocross, and you're hitting bumps, and you're thinking about how that valve would work. And I used to tune suspension at Fox after, and develop suspension. And you just go, that's not the way it would work. And that's kind of that kinesthetic experience that builds a better product.
What word? Kinesthetic?
Kinesthetic.
Oh, kinesthetic.
Of feeling it.
Yeah.
It's a whole body experience riding a bike. Everybody knows that. It's not a mental thing. Yeah. And every little impact that gets you, you're going, well, why that? And so that's carried me through on these bikes, because I ride them, and then you come back and being able to have the sort of resources and to think about a solution, and that's, I think, builds a better bike. And
so what happened with your design, this air shock design?
It wasn't air, it was electronic.
Oh.
I went on to build it. They let me build it.
Okay.
But then I left Ford because they said, well, we're halfway through, they go, we're going to send it to Japan, the racer again. And I said, well, I'm leaving then, because if you don't want to compete, I compete to win. With product development, to me, is you had to build the best shock in the world, or you're not going to, why waste your time? And so I left Ford then.
Just real quickly, I was just thinking about, because I know, again, the Turner family lore, you guys are all these fucking genius guys. Like, what was it like at a kitchen table or dinner time table with you guys? Like, between your brothers are all smart, your dad, I mean.
We didn't talk. Back when we were kids, we got into moto, we couldn't even have on a bicycle. My dad said they were too dangerous.
What?
And suddenly at like 13, my brother was 13, he goes, I want to buy a mini bike, and I don't have enough money, you want to buy half of it? And I go, oh, okay. I have no interest in motorcycles. And I just started riding that, and then in 3 years, we're all motorcycles everywhere and racing, and it changed. But there was no talk of innovation at all. We were just kids.
So it just all came after that?
We were just hammering away and digging holes and making jumps. We were making stuff all the time, and soapbox cars and stuff. But it wasn't like any nerding out on that stuff. I don't think any of us knew what we were going to do. And then once you're in your moto, that's all we talked about is, at
what
the table.
Did you grow up in?
70s.
No, what town?
Oh, I arrived at City.
Oh, really?
With Rick.
The RWC.
Anyways, thanks for joining us and being part of our bicycle world, because you're as much of really a part of it as any of us are, and we really appreciate
Santa
it.
Cruz.
And Santa Cruz too. Thank you very much. Yeah. Okay, Here we are with our final installment of the Big Four. Keith Bontrager, the granddaddy.
Hey now.
This is a big deal to be able to sit with KB. Anyway, so Keith Bontrager, for people who don't know the name, early roots, as we've talked about with Jim, you know, he started off, you'll find out, he was a bicycle guy when he became a motorcycle guy, but, you know, motocross was a big deal about what his earliest beginnings were, and then slowly but surely, when I was at Mountain Bike Action in '86, you know, and then we first saw this composite fork that he made that kind of like was just like game changer, you know, because like all we had on mountain bikes back then was just these spindly little steel forks that just didn't do anything, and then the composite fork shows up, and then Tongate comes out with a switchblade, which is was that a deal with you guys? Or?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then of course the famous frame maker, AKA Keith Bontrager. And then this is sort of like, this is where it came from. So the dumpster diving to the Tour de France was sort of like as really an ode to Keith's legacy, because it started off as I hope he's going to tell the story about dumpster diving, that from his earliest beginnings that created Bontrager Cycling, the industry, the company as that. And then next thing you know, after Trek purchases Bontrager in '93, '94, his name becomes like the household product for wheels, helmets, for virtually like everything. And then here's, you know, Lance and the whole teams in after Lance, Bontrager wheels, you know, and all these Bontrager parts. And so that was really the impetus for the theme we came up with, dumpster diving to the Tour de France, which really kind of explains this, you know, this wide expanse of cycling knowledge, passion, and history. So Keith Bontrager, welcome. Thank you for coming.
Thanks, man.
Let's just start off with the beginning. Is that whole mythological story true about that you get your earliest beginnings was stealing rims from Specialized to re-roll them in 26 inches?
I wouldn't have called it stealing.
Yeah, borrowing.
Exactly. A friend of mine, George Slough, who Jim Gentes, I'm sure, knows from San Jose. I used to go over to his place and buy parts, and he had a bunch of used rims or what seemed like used rims, and he said, "Well, I get those out of the dumpster at Specialized," and I bought a couple of them from him for my bikes.
And they were road rims, though. Right?
Road rims,
Yeah.
like old French road rims, and I had a pile of those laying around, and he charged me like $1 each because he said these aren't good, they won't work, and that's, you know, Specialized had gotten them back from a dealer or something like that, and just threw them out in the trash. And so those were what were laying around the house when I decided to try to cut one down. And the only reason, being cheap and poor, that I could do that was because I'd only paid $1 for it. So
Yeah.
It didn't work. It's no big deal. And that worked out.
So just take it. Were they Wyman rims originally? Or
No, they
Mavics,
were
or just some
Super
other?
Champion.
Oh, okay.
And eventually Mavic, but Super
Yeah.
Champion. Super Champion rims were cool because they just had simple pins, steel pins at the joint.
Mm-hmm.
So you could pull them apart, then roll them around to a smaller size, cut them carefully, and push them back together with the original pins.
And then your notion at the time was to do a rim, like what were you trying to achieve with that roll rim?
Lightweight.
So it was lighter weight?
Yeah,
And
we
was
were riding Araya 7X rims at the time, and those were, you know, they were okay, single wall, you know, but you could do a lot better with a lighter rim.
Yeah, and super narrow, obviously, back those rims.
Yeah, and that actually was a problem. I didn't
Yeah.
really know much about how tires and rims work together.
Yeah,
But we were riding skinny tires back then too. 1.75s were
Right.
fine to race with.
so what year about was that? You were borrowing rims from.
Do you know how old I am? How hard it is to remember all this stuff? I would
early
say
80s.
I was married in '79, and this was happening a little bit after that, so early '80s.
Yeah, okay. And after your foray in Europe, smoking pot with Jim Pomeroy.
It was hash.
Okay.
Yeah, after that.
Yeah. So early '80s. For all you Jim Pomeroy fans, that's a whole other story. But anyways, so then was the rims like, and you told me you were already even when you were working at Fox, you were riding a bicycle to Fox. I mean, you were already into bicycles to some degree.
I started commuting to work at Fox, when I worked at Fox on a bike, and that was the beginning of my cycling.
Yeah. And then the thing I actually just found out too was just in terms of you actually went to UC Santa Cruz was it a physics major?
Yeah.
And did you graduate with that? Or was like
I didn't graduate. I made a deal with myself and took a graduate class in advanced dynamics because there was a teacher there that I really wanted to learn from, and was going to finish the degree later.
Yeah.
Never did.
Okay.
It worked out.
So you start off with rims. What time would you start building frames?
The first thing I did was frames.
Oh, before the wheels even?
Yeah.
Ah,
yeah.
cheers. Okay.
And I'd been building frames for, I don't know, 5 years or something like
really?
that. By then, 4 years, something like that.
Huh.
Yeah.
Like the same, how different were they from what we became famous for in terms of the privateer or the road bike?
Pretty different. At first they were, pretty similar to the other brazed frames at the time. And it took a little while to get in to start TIG welding them. But I realized from working on motorcycles that TIG welding would be a fine way to connect the tubes together. And then while I was at UCSC, I studied the metallurgy of joints and the impact of the heat required to do the joinery, and realized that you could make it a much better joint if you TIG welded it, not just as good.
And road frames first?
A road frame was the first thing I built for myself, and then I built a mountain bike, the second frame. Wow. And I made track frames for customers at Slough's Bike Shop, San Jose Bike Club. So it was just like, I was a frame builder, I'd make anything.
Sure.
So by mid to late 80s, you have rims, you're already doing frames, and then composite fork comes out late 80s.
Yeah.
And then this thing. Can you tell us a little bit about what you did with Kestrel and the Nitro, and then a little bit about also with Paul?
Kestrel had started up down in Watsonville, and they were working with Brent Trimble, who was the guy who came up with the idea originally. Bevel Hogg was from Trek, so he had his start with carbon then. Bevel and Tom French asked me to do some just simple consulting work for him, and I did the geometry and the basic shape for the 200 SC frames that they did. There was the one after the 4000, I think they called it, the aerodynamic frame that Trimble designed. And then I ended up being kind of a consultant for them off and on. I never got paid, but that was okay because I was getting experience in areas that I'd never really would ever have a chance to be involved in. And they set me up with Tanguay for the deal with the switchblades. They inspired me to get a patent on that fork, which worked. So they called me up one day and said, "Come down, we want you to check this thing out." And this guy had brought a bike there for them to look at. And it was a suspension bike, but it just had a rear suspension, no front suspension. And it was just like a garage door spring kind of thing, So basically it was a bike you could ride where the back wheel moved. Yeah. And they were riding it around in a construction site, across the street from where they were. And they said, "This thing's really cool." And I rode around on it and I said, this isn't very cool. But I've got this guy that I work by who I've known for a long time, and we raced motorcycles together for a long time. And you should let us build you a suspension bike. And you should let us do something for you because we could do something. We've talked about this a lot. Yeah. We could do something that'd be a lot better than this. And so Paul Turner and I built them a prototype.
Oh, no kidding, huh?
That was that bike. They paid us $600. We did it in 2 months.
You finally got paid, bud.
Yeah, we got paid. Actually, the Tonga deal was really good, so they more than made up for that. But we showed it at Long Beach, I think, in 88, yeah. And that was I designed and built the frame out of aluminum, and they skinned it with carbon. And the shock didn't work, but I made it look like it would work. And I'd been building the crown, so that was the same crown as the fork, the composite fork. And Paul made all the little internal doodads for the fork so that you could ride it.
Oh yeah. It's so funny because I remember that was on the cover of the show, and it was like in the winter down in Anaheim, and it was on we shot a photo of it on the cover of Long Beach show. Yeah, you're right. On the cover of Mountain Bike Action, and I think about it now, it's like even when like late 100 years ago, I'll be looking. We hardly shot any photos of it. I mean, like there's this one photo on the cover of and then Rob Metzger sitting there like kind of like looking at it. But it just seems like to me, I'm like, how do we miss that? Like the bigger story of what that thing was at the time, because then but within 10 years,
Dude,
we'd be
there were
pouring over
so many cool anodized 3D violet parts that you guys had to photograph, and I totally get it. That was just like.
I mean, honestly, it's amazing to think of that bike. Again, all these things that predate, what Jim did with e-bikes and stuff, just predating so much stuff in Calfee with carbon, so much, because that didn't show up till many years later,
But it did make an impression.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you look at it now, I'm just like, God, I don't know. It was an amazing bike. And anyways, I won't get to that. It's a whole other aside on the suspension. But so you do that, and then you're still becoming popular for the steel frames. This great photo, of course, and the mansion that you lived in back there, well kept.
It really was my garage, but we did move things around a little bit for the photo.
And I just remember, back then, I mean, we used to just like the world of bicycles, bike dorks, bike geeks, whatever, we used to like the whole thing about even like your gussets was like a big talking point, it's like, I mean, like the smallest, silliest things.
Mattered.
Yeah. And I mean, you created this whole legacy, because then we talked about it before, like, there was like, oh yeah, well, my Bontrager's a pre-Wisconsin Bontrager. Oh yeah, well, your Bontrager's not as good as my Bontrager, And it's just like we fall into these traps of like, crosstalk, not your crosstalk, Andrew, but just crosstalk. But you made the point. It's like, once Trek did buy you, purchase it, and the frames actually became smarter, a little bit better built maybe, and the fact that some of the same hands that made these bikes in Santa Cruz were making them in Wisconsin. Yeah. But steel is real. I mean, that whole thing. He rolls his eyes. There's still people who it's like a thing. And
I didn't realize at the time that would become a brand identity that would be difficult to shake, because I sort of considered myself a physicist engineer, and I could come to understand other materials and work with other materials. We made titanium stuff, we made aluminum frames, but that once you get locked into that identity, it's hard to shake. So, and in the end, it didn't matter that much. I think we wrote it out as well as we could, and the time we'd put into steel bikes wasn't a waste. They ended up being pretty good bikes from all that.
Yeah, strong like cheap, right? They became like the maxim for Bontrager.
Yeah.
Can you tell us what that was about? And
it just at the time, this was the first.
Strong like cheap, choose two.
Pick two.
That was
at the time the trend in mountain bikes was to make lighter and lighter bikes, and without any sort of technical discipline, you could make some really dangerous bicycles that way. The handlebars and stems were snapping pretty regularly, and that was the testing we did, mechanical testing we did, was basically pointed at that problem. It's like this is a test that can duplicate a failure that we see pretty regularly on handlebars, and we can design a part that will last 10 times longer or whatever. And the quip, the saying, was sort of to summarize that. You can have two of those three things, but you can't have three of those all at once.
Yeah.
Carbon kind of changed that actually, but
yeah. And then so steel bikes. I was sort of waiting for that photo, but so we're lucky to have Paul Willerton here, who as I was reading, in terms of going over your compact road frame. Is that right?
yeah.
So this is the compact road frame. Can you just tell us a little bit in terms about that, what it was to you at the time, and
Well, we took everything we learned from mountain
And what
bikes.
year was that? Paul?
90s? Early 90s?
Prototype 94, it was on the floor.
Okay.
Yeah. We took what we knew about assembling lightweight mountain bikes,
Yeah.
excuse me, and we threw out all the religion about how bike components should fit in the frame. At the time, as a custom builder, you were constrained on seat posts by what was available. And what was available were 150 millimeter long
Yeah.
forged Calfee seat posts or replicas. And so that meant that the shape of the frame had to put the seat clamp in a place where that seat post could get the saddle to where it needed to go. And that was like, that's why frames were shaped more or less the way they were. And if you use a mountain bike seat post in the frame, you could change that. So that meant you could do what Lance referred to as a girl's bike. You know, you could have the sloping top tube and make the frame much lighter, and the seat post actually worked better when it was longer and it could flex around a little bit. So that's what we did.
And Willerton, you said something about the frame that you liked it a little bit?
I thought it was fantastic. I mean, I had ridden, you know, Calfees with Zed in '91, and then Merlin's, and then when I, you know, went with Keith, he passed on what I think was a prototype. But anyway, right away I could just feel. I mean, again, for a steel bike, not to pigeonhole it into the steel thing, but for a steel bike, it was world class. It was better in every regard. I felt like uphill, downhill. Yeah. There's another group that, I mean, I brought that up. Shane and I were staying at the Flandrian Hotel in Belgium, and Jamie Anderson has, you know, the first Giant TCR, so Giant really gets credit for that. It's a big thing in Europe, the introduction of the compact frame. And I raised my hand, I was going, well, that's, actually, you know, Keith predated that by years.
Yeah.
But actually, everybody who was building a mountain bike frame was figured it out. You know, it was just that Giant decided to sell it to the race team.
And then also there's another photo will come up here, but again, it's Paul Willerton here in the crowd. But it'll be a picture of him. So was the year you were racing the mountain bike for what year? 94?
Yeah. Keith was the only one that gave me a chance that year. Keith and Hans Heim at Bontrager. But I've been hanging out at Keith's shop and everything for
Right here.
years already, yeah. For years before then.
And so by then, I mean, there was still like aluminum bikes were still coming along, and you're on a steel bike to a degree.
Yeah, I think Trek even had, or there were some carbon bikes
Yeah.
beginning to come in.
OCLV coming in,
I was
yeah.
like the last guy on steel. And then years later, I mean, I went back with Keith in '97, still on a steel bike after the Trek move.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So full circle then, as all starts again, tying all these things together, brings us back to you have this composite fork, Jim Turner motocross, and then Jim Turner again in the sense that now you're working on this e-bike. And I've been just watching on social, you've been doing this mapping quest all through Santa Cruz, you know, like, I don't quite understand it.
Two different things.
Yeah, so good, because I don't want to talk about that, because I couldn't figure out, I'm like, what the hell is he doing now? You know, but so tell us just about, in terms of where you are with this e-bike thing and what it means to you now.
Well, it's not an e-bike,
Okay.
and it's not a motorcycle, though it could be a motorcycle. It's an electric moped from a legal point of view.
No pedals.
Well, it's not a moped because there's no pedals, because mopeds have pedals.
Yeah.
But they don't legally. In California, you can make a bike that has under 4 horsepower that goes no more than 30 miles an hour. It has to have a license plate on it. It has to be registered. You have to wear a motorcycle helmet and have a motorcycle license to ride it. And it's a legal vehicle at that point. It has to have insurance.
So just real quickly, how does that differ from what you were saying about how you couldn't do a e-bike with the license plate because of all those regulations and stuff? Is there some other, you found some little caveat there?
Because of the moped, right?
Ah,
Yeah.
okay.
So the quick and dirty version of it is I got a motor, put it on, or a hub drive motor, inexpensive, has all the problems that Jim talked about. Put it on a privateer mountain bike, rode it around town. Like, this thing hauls ass around town.
Yeah.
Not a good idea to put it on a 30-year-old mountain bike designed for single track though, because it's not very stable. That was a 1500 watt hub drive. That's half the legal power limit.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it went on without any modifications or anything. It went over 30, so it could go faster than it was supposed to go. This one goes 50, but it's not limited. I can slow it down with the controller. The next one's going to go 30% faster yet. That will also be slowed down. These aren't, I'm not building these things to do the speed run,
Yeah.
but it's just the quickest way around town. It weighs a little bit more than a standard e-bike. It accelerates really fast. It costs nothing to operate, and it's a relatively small battery. And it's built with more or less bicycle components. And this is just proof of concept. It's not a business. It's just a way for me to get around. I'm sharing the information with anybody who wants it. There's guys who know. I mean, I've had to come up to speed on electronics in order to do the 12-volt step-down circuit to drive the lights. But the thing really is a blast to ride around town. And the videos are basically showing people how to ride around town without getting killed by cars.
Yeah.
So low stress streets, find ways to ride around on your bike or your e-bike or this thing, but stay away from the worst of the car door alleys or the worst of the skinny streets in Santa Cruz.
Yeah. Another part of the continuum that, again, I keep going back to that brought this all together was for Rick and I, and it's part, with the lighthouse and stuff, is the idea of what Santa Cruz begat, right? And so just for the sake of it, I mean, I asked Jim this question too, but I mean, it's like, what was it about? Was there anything in particular about Santa Cruz that, that?
Well, the university got me there, but the trails kept me there.
Yeah. Yeah, good trail system. So you've done this, these simple bikes, and now this, just for the sake of it, and comes going back to like my question, like what is it about the bicycle? And like for you, what is it about the bicycle, and is there where is it going to go or be?
I don't know. It's like everybody else has said, simplest, most efficient, most fun.
Yeah.
No, there's no traffic in the bike lane. You get stuck in traffic in your car.
Yeah. Yeah. Is there a one in particular moment of something you've done and created that stands out in the annals of Bontrager file history?
I like winning races. I got a chance to win a few. I like working on things that won races.
Yeah. Nice.
It's nice when you've got an idea and, like Jim said, it turns out right.
Where'd you grow up?
Santa Clara in Hawaii. I saw my first motocross race in Hawaii, in Kaneohe, in 1970, I think. I saw John DeSoto and Bob Grossi get their ass kicked by the Belgians.
On that note, any questions for Keith Bontrager, everybody?
Can you tell us a little bit about the process of joining Trek? Was that a matter of business survival or opportunity to grow, or what was that?
It was, let's see. I had been running the company for a long time. There'd been a few points where I'm not sure that I can do this anymore. Never had any money. Never made any money at it. I know people laugh, but that's really true. You take a vow of poverty if you're going to become a frame builder, and it's hard to get out of that. Yeah. Hans Heim came along, who was now part of Ibis Cycles. He became a partner. He's a smart business guy, good cyclist. We worked together, built it up. Still didn't have any money, but it had some inertia in the business, and actually had a little bit more of the sort of normal business infrastructure. You know, had people doing the books and had salespeople and marketing people. Not much, but a little. He left, went to Santa Cruz, and so I ended up running the place badly for a few years, and that was really hard, like 80-hour weeks, and I wasn't doing anything that I wanted to do. And I got a call from John Burke, said, "We're interested in buying your company." And took about a month to do the deal.
Was it important for you to continue on and work on components and things like that?
It was, part of the deal was that they would hire me to do design work for them. And I don't think that went exactly the way they had hoped it would, but because I'm more of a scientist engineer than a designer. But it worked out in each, as things morphed along. I think I ended up being pretty valuable to them. And they were, I got paid for the first time for a long time. So that was important. At the time, they invested about $1 million in the factory. They weren't going to shut the place down. We moved the people that were involved in manufacturing had a ton of support. We were making frames better at that time than we ever had been before that. And there was just sort of an economic catastrophe that forced them to close the place. And then from then on, I actually had income and was free to do a lot more of the things that I wanted to do, including ride my bike a lot more.
Did a lot of the products with your name on it have your input or approval?
No, at some point that was clearly not happening anymore. The things that I was good at, bars, stems, and wheels, were things that I spent a lot of time on.
Anyone else?
So we tend to focus on what we can see, which is product, and this is kind of for all of you guys. But to some degree, you've all built companies or brands or both.
Yeah.
Can you talk about what you learned and how your business evolved by process? Like, you started just building frames, but eventually you had a company. You, in my mind, kind of pioneered actual product testing for a lot of stuff. How did process drive product? Like, how did you go from just making something to process and that cycle?
It is to some extent. I didn't have any background in business, and the background that I had from the motocross days with Fox was just developing things. You get an idea, you turn it into hardware, and then improve it and improve it. And I think the frustration in being in the business at that time was all the discipline required to operate a business was like out of my league. I just didn't want any part of it. And so whatever we did with the brand was basically just cooking up better parts, or trying to cook up better parts, and then kind of let everything flow from that. Zap at one point kind of surprised me with some sort of a punk rock music industry analysis of my sale to Trek. And that surprised me to some extent. And then what happened in some respects with the being a sellout, after that surprised me too. And I had no real feeling for any of that at the time. I mean, I understand it a lot better now. But it was just like, I'd never thought of the world in those terms before. And so the brand was formed entirely from my point of view as the development of better parts, strong, light, cheap. This is what we do.
Just real quickly, what he referred to is I sent him a fax, and it said, "Congratulations, you fucking corporate sellout." No, it said from one to another, because I just gotten from Mountain Bike Action to Rodale at Bicycling Mountain Bike Magazine. So we were like the same time, because people were saying, fucking Zap went to Rodale, blah blah. And I see this Bontrager, and I'm like, oh, sweet, I can say it. And honestly, I
still have the fax.
And he sent that to me, and I posted on Instagram like 6 months ago, and it's like of all my Instagram posts, it's like it's like 3,000 for the set. I do a bitchin' picture of DeCosta or something, get something. The number one like with a rocket is that people viewing that fax that I sent him. So I mean, yeah.
Well, at that time, for those of us around at that time, you sold, Paul sold Talk Shocks, Jim sold Giro.
Yeah.
All of these companies
We're flipping.
from Santa Cruz.
Yeah, that's a good point.
What, I should add something. We did. I have pictures of that party. The Slow Gherkin played that party.
I saw Zach yesterday. They just toured here.
Really? Well, the one of the guys that I brought in to help me run the business, who actually did have some business background, said, when I asked him about the deal with Trek, he said, the industry's going through what's called a consolidation phase. And he said, so you think your competitors are Ritchie and Salsa or whatever. Think of what that's going to be like if those guys get bought and have a marketing budget that's like 100 times what it is now. Can you compete? And there was no way. I mean, I didn't know how to do that at the time. I'd never really even considered it. But imagining those guys becoming much more organized and much slicker and much better at what they're doing meant that we were just going to get blown away. So better to be in that game.
Are there any questions from afar? All good? Okay, KB, thank you, sir. Pleasure.
Thank you.
Okay, well, here we are. We're just going to a quick wrap up of the first ever Sutton Speakeasy. We got the four geniuses here and the game changers, the revolutionary. We were like in this run up to this, we were like always different, what are we going to call them? What are these guys? Dynamic, foursome and blah, 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 blah. And you had, what was that one tagline you had? It was like kind of lame, and I changed it.
Well, I usually start off lame and finish lamer.
Yeah, no, but it was just like, to me, it was like something like, I don't know, like the smart guys. I'm like, we need something stronger, because it's like, honestly, again, I'm blowing up your skirts, but it's just like these guys revolutionized things that we take for granted now, and it's just like, it's so, yeah. It's just, and we could, and then if we do Sutton Speakeasy too, we're going to roll in another group of four guys or something, because there's a million of them out there in a million different variations and guises, and so, but this is the first four we started with because it was Santa Cruz and the Sea Otter Classic and everything like that, but they're revolutionaries. They are, and just like in every little small instance, whether it was just like a Bontrager saddle that he didn't even touch, but his stinking name was on it, that someone made, God, this is the greatest saddle in the world, or the brilliance of Calfee's carbon frames. Safety, I know it's nothing for Jim, but the fact that it saved your life, it saved my life, So anyways, here they are. And so we're just going to wrap it up in terms of anyone with, having the four of them together. I think like the last question that Richter asked, kind of deep, but about the process thing, I thought, God, that's actually something that applies to each of these guys, because they all, and again, there's the commonality of struggle, tenacity, vision, brilliance, genius. Stupidity. That too.
Luck.
That too, luck. Exactly. So anyways, these are the ingredients of what these four guys had, and here they are all together. So if anyone has a question, let it come. Oh, Shane first.
Yeah, I got a question about Calfee's logo. Can you tell us about your logo?
Yeah, that's a good Santa Cruz story. I was enamored with the Fibonacci series, which has got a really cool spiral, and everyone says, oh, it's what the Nautilus shell is kind of describing. So I went down to the boardwalk and I bought one of those shells. and I went and I photocopied it, and then I scanned it into my computer and started working a Fibonacci spiral mathematically on top of the image. Didn't match. It's not the same spiral. And, you know, and I was like, and I liked the Nautilus image better than the mathematically derived one I created. So I took that exact image and cleaned it up a little bit, and the proportions are exactly the same as a real Nautilus shell. And interestingly, over the years, I've had different graphic designers want to, you know, redesign my logo for me and trade for a bike or something, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, don't change the proportions, you know, do some color work maybe. They would always change the proportions, and they always looked less good. And the other interesting thing is they said it's too detailed. You've got too many little lines in there. It's not a good logo. It's like, nobody does that. It's like, fuck it, I'm doing it. and I've been complimented on that logo a lot more than I ever thought I would. I thought it was kind of a goofy thing, but I've had actual designers, like professionals, say, that's a really interesting logo. So thanks for noticing.
Good question, Shane, but nice.
Where did the logo come from for the paw? Bontrager.
I did it, and it's evolved. My ex-wife at the time modified it because I put a raccoon paw in. Let me get this straight now. No, I put a cat paw in first, which I'm fond of cats. I thought that would be a good idea. The cat paw was really boring, and she tweaked it to make it look more interesting, and it turned out it was more like a raccoon paw, and I had no real connection with raccoons. But I went with it. But yeah, and it's evolved a zillion times since then. But that was the original.
At least 3 of you are into e-bikes, and we see states and cities cracking down on e-bikes, partially maybe because it's a lot of cheap, really fast e-bikes. What would you like to see change so that recreational cyclists or commuters aren't penalized and we don't implement really barriers to access of e-bikes?
Ooh, I'd like to answer that one. Yeah. Is that first, you need to either call into those things and differentiate from a electric motorcycle that is usually called an e-bike. Because I read the articles that this e-bicycle was going 50 and they don't go 50. So it can't be one, but they're labeling, and then like California changed that law that the Type 3 can't have a throttle because these people are riding. It's like if they're on a dirt bike racing down the street, a motocross bike, they're not going to call them a moped. You know, it's bad reporting, and the legislator should be made aware of the realities that e-bikes only go 28, real bikes.
I think it's changing. I think it's getting a little better now.
But we read a lot of articles where, yeah, they're just labeling them all together. And we were happy, we read one the other day that the people said these were e-motorcycles, not e-bikes. Actually said that, the reporter. Because that's what the legislation is coming at, is it's not even the e-bicycles. There's like a witch hunt. You know, they're low speed. And if they're going over 28, they're breaking the law. And I'm really for enforcing those laws, not so much worrying about the technical, you know, like if you're breaking the speed limit, it's like if you drive your Ferrari at 100 in a school zone, it's not the car that's the problem.
Bike cultures that have been successful in Western Europe have pretty thorough training for kids to get on a bike. And without that, buying every 12-year-old a rad power bike and turning them loose on it, it's working about the way you think it would. It's working really badly.
Yeah.
And without the background, just letting a kid have a bike like that, the outcome's exactly what you should expect. And I don't think that's a good idea. So there should be ways, and I have no idea how to do this in a direct-to-consumer market. There should be a way to make sure that the kid that's got that bike has at least some background in how to operate it on the road.
Yeah, there's a
a couple in California who just got slapped with child endangerment for their kid, letting their kid go wild on a Suron or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
And he caused a crash and was injured, I think, and then the parents are being held liable. So
Right.
stuff's moving in the right direction.
And that's good.
A little
because-
bit, so.
Yeah, because if you ride a motocross bike down the street, nobody says there's no discussion about
You're obviously
whether they
breaking the
should be,
law.
yeah, they shouldn't exist or any. There's no discussion of that. You broke the law. I mean,
Right. But turning every 12-year-old loose on a Suron.
but that's against the law for them. They
it-
can't be riding them. So.
Right, right. But every 12-year-old would be doing wheelies down the street the instant they
Like
get a
you
chance.
guys were when you were kids.
Exactly.
Yeah, like we
right.
were. But we rode motocross bikes down the street.
Yeah.
Clearly illegal.
Yeah.
We actually didn't. We pushed them to the orchard and then we
Oh.
trespassed in the orchard to get our rocks off. Yeah.
Wow.
So each of you, I think of as like an inventor, entrepreneur, people who created, that you had an idea and you created that thing. How did you then work to collaborate with people? Like how did collaboration happen with you? Did you find people that were drawn to what you did? Did you have to convince people? Can you talk a little bit about how you took a vision and then collaborated to make a thing?
I can start on that one. Sometimes you don't collaborate and you just do it by yourself. That's the easy way.
Yeah.
But yes, you have to be somewhat compelling with your idea to a machinist, for example, who doesn't believe really what you're trying to do with this plastic stuff, and you have to, give them the chance to prove you wrong, basically. And you can argue about it, but at the end you don't want to be rude, and you finally get them to buy into it at a discount, we hope, because we're poor, or you get them to teach you how to do it. So the collaboration sometimes is a mentorship, a relationship more than anything else.
I have a fun anecdote. If you're really smart, then you do everything yourself. But if you're not super smart, you got to rely on other people. And I had to hire some people to put helmets together. I called my brother, said, "Hey, I need somebody to put some helmets together." So he brought a bunch of friends from Chico. Had 6 employees. I didn't know how to pay them. I just gave them cash. But my neighbor was a bookkeeper, so later I'm like, "Hey, I need some help with bookkeeping." My dad has a clever mind. He made the threading tool. My brother set up the production line. You do have to lean on other people. You can't do everything unless you've got 8 arms or something.
Yeah. That's gotta be hard. I'm not like you, but like I have an idea for something. I find it hard to like trust somebody else to do something or to take that and tweak it. And you guys have all somehow navigated that, which to me is really impressive.
Not easily.
You got to roll the dice.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think
You got to take a chance, right?
Yeah, you fail a lot. You got to have the courage to fail, and just give it a try. And sometimes it works. There's countless times I've tried something that I thought might not work, but I'm going to try anyway, and it ends up working. And so, all right. Even I audited some classes at MIT. One was a composites engineering class, which was the only class they had there. Everything else was based on metals engineering, and so that's a whole other topic. But in there, they talked about epoxy resins. Once you mix the 2 chemicals, you're done. You can't really change it. Like thermoplastics, you can heat it up and bend it, and it'll change. So for years, that's kind of what I was, understanding. And I had some frames that were misaligned. And I was like, oh crap, I can't change it back. I can't rebend it. Well, what if I try? Because I'm motivated now, because here's a perfectly good frame that's off by 1/4 of an inch. So you put it in the oven, you put a bunch of heat on it, you press on it, you bend it further than it goes. It worked. The MIT guys were wrong.
Oh.
It's like, so.
The guys that run the Cray computer.
So, stuff like that you do all the time, and you just give it a shot.
one thing I think we all share is we didn't get together with a team of people like a corporation would. Of you got a production person and an accountant, and we all just decided to do this without any knowledge of building a company. We're the entrepreneur of the idea, and that's why it's very different than a sort of corporate thing where if you're at a corporation, when I was like Ford, you're part of this giant team. You're just doing a little part. You don't think about anything. You're not stressed out about how to run payroll and all this other stuff, and we're all learning that as we go. And so that's one reason it's haphazard, right? There's no,
Well, one of the things when we were talking, you said, Rick, how do you do what you do? And I said, well, it just happens. And then you said, yeah, I kind of feel the same way. And I think that even though I'm in a different whole side of the world than you guys are, there is this sort of like moment where you just say, Zap, why don't we put this event together, or why don't I build this, or why don't I?
It's obvious to you, right? The path is clear, whereas other people are going, well, there's all these trees in the way and rocks.
So my question is, other than what we might anticipate as the answer, I had this engineer that told me, or I took a drafting class. The answer can be none, it's just me. But if you have a mentor that has nothing to do with cycling or engineering or carbon fiber, who's the most influential person in your lives growing up that you feel contributed to you being in this room today? Tough question. You don't have to answer.
Bucky Fuller.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'd have to say,
No,
I have to say my dad. He was a tinkerer himself. We were cleaning up the house one time, and I found this tube. He had a dispenser for toothpaste that rolled the toothpaste, and then he invented this thing, a threader for flossing. And this was in the 70s. It's cut out of wood, and I'm like, oh, maybe that's where I get that from. But he also supported my bike racing and all my crazy ideas. And, yeah.
And where'd you grow up?
Pardon? Cupertino.
Oh,
Yeah.
We actually first didn't know that we passed. Actually, I bet you Jim and I were in the same place at the same time. We never realized it. So he was friends with the Cupertino High School motocross clan.
yeah.
And he
Neil
used to
Snow,
go out to
Neil?
Sunnyvale and Santa Clara, PAL. and
Yeah,
watch.
PAL.
Yeah.
You guys are all there.
Neil Snow.
Yeah, we didn't know.
I used to race there too.
Nice.
Yeah. So Craig, you're an outlier.
Okay, now wait, just real quickly. I'm going to vouch for my pal Craig. So, the outlier, right? Guy, he doesn't know DeCosta or Garrett Wool saying, what, who, what? No, nothing. So we're sitting out there, I was, talking about the bike and Greg LeMond, and he notices the shirt I'm wearing, Mert Lowell's shirt, right? And who's one of my personal heroes. And for a lot of us of this age group, in On Any Sunday, of course, Mert Lowell played this, was the lead character. And so I always kind of, whenever I can, wear the shirt out of my tribute to Mert. And Mert, I hope you're still doing well. I mean, I know you're doing well, but hang in there. And so, typical Calfee, right? I mean, every time I talk to the guy, my head just goes. So, and he goes, "Oh, Mert Lowell, back in Mert Lowell, I made a carbon fiber spring for his first shock on his fork." And I'm like, you mean the Lowell leader fork, And I'm thinking about, because I always think of the more modern version that Control Tech made. It was all aluminum, had a Fox air shock, But before that, I remember, I have a photo to prove it of me testing it at the Anaheim Bike Show, jumping over, and had this big, massive coil spring. This guy's sitting there telling me how he's twisting carbon fiber to make a coil spring for Mert Lowell's fork. So Mert Lowell, still here today, and Calfee, he had a little motocross with Mert. So doesn't get more authentic than that.
And I ride a zero electric motorcycle and customize those kind of bikes. So I'm all about the motorbike stuff.
This world.
Yeah.
I raced Mert once.
See, there you go.
You raced it?
In a endurance race at Fremont drag strip, and motocross guys, whoever showed up.
Right.
It was a good bang for the buck type of race compared to motocross, where you raced a couple of 30-minute motos and you waited all around all day. This you could ride for, I forget what they're 3 or 4 hours long. And Mert was came out and raced
On
that
an
day.
oval?
It was no, it was a complicated track, but there was one section of the course that was kind of like a TT track, and I followed him over the jump that one time.
outside of the bowl and you did a bunch of stuff
Yeah.
out in the field.
One of those, what do they call marathons then or something?
Yeah, I think that's right, and it was at the old drag strip on Durham Road. Pretty cool.
Any other questions?
Just kind of curious, I mean, you're all relatively the same age, and you're talking about inspirations, that's a great question. And I'm just wondering, during your careers, when you were beginning and during the first phase of your careers, did you have any inspirations or possible collaborations with one another?
No.
Not on the current. Not on the current.
Jim and I
products.
argued in the truck a couple times when we were driving around in
Keith
Europe.
and I never talked about building bicycle frames when we were in Europe. No, or bicycles. We never talked about bicycles. Never. I don't think it was on your mind or my mind or no, never.
I have a question. Is there a product that we talk about iterating all kinds of crazy ideas and how that's a part of the innovation? I mean, that's what has made you guys like so special. Is there anything that you wished stuck that didn't? Any like invention or any cool project that you went down the rabbit hole on?
Common sense. The bicycle industry used to be really cool. You know, parts were easy to get. You could put parts on different bikes. It wasn't all proprietary. They were simple. That's all just like completely fucking gone. And bicycles are different because of that.
Are we engineers involved?
Are we in a better place with the bicycle now than we were, do you think? In terms of like now we have stinking 32-inch wheels coming, all this other bullshit.
Probably, well, the bikes are better, no question. But they're not, they're less practical. And the cool thing about bikes forever, hopefully there'll be a future of this, is that they're really practical. You know, you can fix them anywhere. You ride a steel bike across Africa, if something breaks, you can find a torch and figure out how to put coat hangers, you know, put it back together with coat hangers. That's completely gone now.
Thanks, Greg.
The opposite is true. I'm serious. I've spent a lot of time in Africa, and finding a welder is actually quite challenging.
Okay.
They only have stick
Bad
welding.
example. The bamboo is a really good idea.
No, stick welding is popular. That's it though, electrical stick welding, which is very crude.
It'd be tough to repair a frame with an arc welder.
They do, but it doesn't last. And then the fiber, you do need epoxy. So if you have the magic goo, I usually bring it with me, and you can fix anything. But
What do the airlines think about that?
they don't know about it. They think it's shampoo.
Do you put it in a shampoo bottle?
I've graduated now to those really big jugs of laundry detergent.
Wow.
Yeah, because they have a little tap on it. Yeah.
That is awesome. Oh my God.
Yeah.
But in reference to that, I think when in '90, where we went to bike around the world, and we had a steel frame bike and regular derailleurs, and this, you know, I think about my spare parts was a bit of duct tape and a couple spokes and a chain tool. Nothing was going to break on that thing.
Yeah.
And it would go for years and years, and maybe the cables eventually would rust, and you had to replace them. We've gone to a level of where engineering and technology is made better bikes, right? But they're not as durable, like Keith was talking about, where they're just higher tech. And
Yeah, the high tech aspect is not universal around the world. It's just at the highest levels of competition. And in that level, I'm sort of disappointed with the fashion, you know? It's just, so many things are based on what's fashionable, not what's actually better. And that's a complaint I've had about the bike industry for decades. It's just based on fashion more than anything.
Is it a downside that so much tech is coming to a bicycle and de-simplifying it maybe in a way that we're You know, I mean, I think about that and just I'm like this car I was driving the other day, just like, you know, it's like, as we know, they're so complicated. I just, you know, you get a rental car, I have to sit there for like 45 minutes, like how does this all work? You know,
How do you start?
How do I even start it? Or, you know, how do I pop where's the everything? You know, and I know with bicycles, I mean, again, in its simplest form, and you guys have all talked about this to me in one way or another. You know, it's just like it's the bicycle. It's just that's the fabulousness of a bicycle. You know, and yet now it's like, you know. It's the gimmickry, and that's like one thing where I've sort of been turned off from modern day mountain bikes and just have embraced a gravel bike because I don't need to have 6-inch travel dropper post and this, that, and the other, and I all these, you know, the handlebars all like nothing but levers and everything else, and man, you skin on a gravel bike, and to me it's just enough off road, but bitchin' positioning and nothing. You know, and that's my celebration of a bicycle now.
The bike we really need is a gravel bike.
Yeah, well, remember the popularity of the fixie or the single speed bike? So to me, that was real popular because when you look at it, it was just a simple gear and a wheel, and it just
it's caveman.
Everybody can
awesome.
Understand that machine.
Yeah.
And I get people who call me. They say, "Hey, Craig, why do I always get put in a better mood when I ride my bamboo bike? Like, what's going on here? Like, I have 7 bikes in my garage. I can ride any one of them. But consistently, I'm put in a better mood on the bamboo bike." And I think my theory is that people understand that machine better intuitively. It's just made of bamboo that grows out back, you know. And it's just all lashed together, and it's like super understandable. And, of course, it has good vibration damping, so that might be related. The other bikes with lots of gears and metal, and I don't even know how you mine metal and turn it into tubing, and like it's just, you can't relate to it, but you can relate to a piece of bamboo. Yeah. So to me, that separation and that level of complexity is stressful.
Hey, Craig, I think there's another point that's maybe in the behavioral economics nerd. We tend to view nature from a distance, and we're something else. It's like a movie, and when you actually put yourself in nature and realize that you are a puzzle piece of the world rather than viewing the world, and the bamboo bike allows you to actually experience the world and be part of nature. It's with you. And I think after thousands of years of human development, we'll never lose that inner desire to stick our hands in moist dirt or ride a bamboo bike. And the more technology comes into our lives, the more detached we are from this inner need to stick our hands in the dirt. And the bamboo bike is the best bike to stick your hands in the dirt.
I think it gives you permission to relax. It's just a bike.
Yeah.
You know, if you're not $12,000 carbon fiber or whatever, there's, you know, what kit am I wearing today? Oh, oops, I haven't shaved my legs in 3 days.
Yeah. Hey, Craig, manipulation of nature though, like I noticed your square bamboo tubes. So did you grow those bamboo in a mold?
Yeah, those were grown in a form made of planks.
Awesome.
Yeah. No, I didn't grow it myself. I got it in Japan, but I went and saw how they did it in the Grove. And they wait for the sprout to come out of the ground.
The Japanese that figured
it comes out full diameter, and they figure out, oh, it's going to be about like that. So they literally wire together 4 planks.
And then what else do they use those for? I mean, it's just
mostly like interior decoration for restaurants and stuff.
But it creates a stronger bamboo.
It's got more stiffness in one direction, which is why I use it on the tandem.
It's awesome. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Going against nature is part of nature too.
Yeah. Andrew?
A lot of you guys have been around in the world of bike racing. Some of you guys with drop bar off-road, but you've seen a lot of boom and bust, like whether it's the Le Mans era, Armstrong era on road, cross growing and then contracting, and now it's gravel. I'm curious if you guys have a vision as to where bike racing is going, and I'm also curious to hear your opinion on how much the bike industry has a role in shaping that, or whether it just reacts to it.
That'd be maybe more of a marketing business guy's deal than engineer's deal.
But when you made cross bikes, you made BMX bikes, was that a reaction to where the market was going, or something that you wanted to support because you thought it was cool?
The latter.
Mountain bikes were just out of a need, right, to ride off-road. They weren't a marketing decision.
There's a desire to get out in nature.
Yeah.
I think e-bike racing would be next, because there's so many e-bikes out there, and anytime two bikes are within sight of each other, it's a race.
Sure.
So we're going to start seeing, I think, the e-bike racing. Didn't you mention that you think this year is going to be the year it really happens here at Sea Otter?
No, I'm not sure what.
Who said that?
They used to have races
I
in
didn't see that,
Seattle.
yeah. I mean, they kind of were pushing towards it, but then they kind of backed off from it a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't really know what's happening.
Given the politics of the e-bike right now, that may not be the best move. Maybe there's some hesitation until some of that settles.
I also don't think consumers really have a grasp on all the different classifications. It's confusing and that's going to have to change.
And without classifications, it'll just be an electric motorcycle race really fast.
I have a question. Either when you were running companies or in your current capacity, is there a grail project or something that never came to light that you were really passionate about? Something you weren't able to get done?
I've got one.
I hope you all do.
Well, I wanted to build an electric motocross bike. I started on one like in 2010. That was always, but never got around to it. You can't do everything you want.
Greg?
Yeah, I've got a streamlined electric motorcycle project. It looks like the Bucky Fuller Dymaxion car, but it's a two-person motorcycle. It's a live project. Got it at the shop, but it's been waiting for me to have more time on it.
Got to build more tandems.
Yeah.
Those Kazakhstan.
Yeah.
It's a high-class problem.
Oh, I'm just always fiddling with stuff. If you're an inventor, you're always fiddling with stuff. I really enjoyed the human-powered vehicles. You know, may get back into that, but that's not a consumer product. It's just a great engineering problem. Yeah.
Maybe you guys work together.
I wanted to mention that we've got a situation in Santa Cruz County where this whole rail trail thing is, right? And so it's going to be millions and millions more, and it keeps happening. So we're building trails for the bikes right now, and of course there's very little going on for the metro part, you say the train part. I'm mentioning this because, you know, it keeps going back and forth, and everyone's digging in on their side, rail or trail is coming. Well, some years back, I was on the RTC there for bikes, and Greg Calfee's told me one time that this is a pretty interesting and brilliant idea. This is right over everyone's head at the RTC. He said, well, why don't you just build a tandem bike, create the trail, and if people need to commute, and you know, it takes 30 or 40 minutes or more from, let's say, Watsonville to Santa Cruz, on that trail there, we could have bike taxis that are tandems, and we could also have luggage on them. And everyone kind of goes, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
But I thought it was pretty brilliant.
I get that a lot,
It's
though.
no, but it's an answer that can work for now. But all these years we're spending all this money and we're actually not getting stuff done. And that's what's really bothers me.
I built the prototype.
Yeah.
No, really. Call it the limo. Person in the back doesn't do anything but sit. It's an e-tandem. It's got massive luggage capacity.
Rickshaws.
It's not a rickshaw. It's just a tandem.
Inline.
And ones that also
And it's fast.
also carry handicap, or however you want to say it, folks who Gentes.
My wife's
88.
my wife's an amputee. That's why I built it.
There you go. Awesome. Well, that's a great solution.
Yeah,
Solve the problem.
taxi bikes, they call them boda bodas in East Africa. They're now moto bodas, which are just motorcycles that are designed to carry 2 or 3 people, long bench seats. Yeah, that's very common in Africa. We could easily do that here.
I wanted to thank everybody for coming, and again, back to the original, thanking Rick and Gail for letting us into the house and utilizing this wonderful space to allow us to have these conversations. Ultimately, thank you to all you 4 guys. I mean, I've spent 30 or 40 years dealing with you in one way or another, and it's been an absolute pleasure, and it's just like, it honestly warms my heart to see you guys together again, because I think just this level of creativity is interesting and inspiring. So it's kind of like a TED Talk, right? Sort of a version of that, I guess. Never been to one, but this whole thing about talking, and what it comes down to, what makes this whole event special for me is, like, for 40 years, I don't know, whatever, editors, blah, 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 I've always just considered myself a storyteller. And whether it's, from Aesop to Bob Roll, everyone has a story to tell, but some stories are better than others, hence these 4 guys. And so I just wanted, the value of telling stories is so great. And just thanks to Rick, because we're just from just crap talk on a telephone to him visualizing this whole event, and maybe if there's more to come, that'd be great. But it's just a great way to tell stories, because these guys in particular have these great histories and ideas and everything that no one knows about. And it's like, whether it's in a magazine or whatever, or this what we're doing here, the value of telling stories is just, that's what I want to be. That's what I'm celebrating now, as what I consider myself, just a simple storyteller. These guys have great stories to tell, and I hope everybody could appreciate what they have to offer. So thank you very much.
I didn't play as big a role as Rick with lending us his house, and with Zap getting the question time, but I don't have the same connections. But growing up in the UK, Mountain Bike Action was my magazine. It would come in this brown paper envelope. I'm like, yes, I've got Mountain Bike Action. So that's my connection with Zap. And I had cut down MA2 rims. So that was like, sweet, I've had those. That was awesome. And my first helmet was a Giro helmet. I do have a pair of old jeans at home with paint splatter on it. So I've got that connection. And then I've got the T-shirt here. Obviously, the Matisse T-shirt, what you had in the early photo, and I got to thank Jim for towing me up the hill yesterday. E-bikes have a great motor pace. It was great. So, I mean, we couldn't have done this without these guys, but also all of you. It's so cool to see that you guys wanted to hear these stories as well. Like, as soon as Rick and Zap mentioned, like, this is going to be so cool. We're not talking about lighter and stiffer and ceramic and carbon, this, that, and the other. Like, we're going to hear all these cool stories, and you guys wanted to hear it too. So that's really important. This is our job, to share this information with everybody. We're all storytellers here, and it's our job to keep informing people. Like, my son's been here, and he's been listening into some of this stuff, and he's like, wow, I never knew that. That's really cool. He just wants to see the lightest thing over there, but now he's hearing all the background, like how we got to those shiny things over there, and that's thanks to all of you. So, I want to thank you, but I also want to thank everybody here for coming, and those that joined on the Zoom call. We couldn't have put this together without you. And if you want to hear something next year, then send us emails. Let us know who you'd like to hear, and we'll do our best to put it on again. So that's my part. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So I got one more, and I'll be quick. Sit down, Jim. No. So some of you know, maybe most of you know, that I retired at the end of last year, to which my wife says, you'll never retire. To which my son says, and everybody that knows me, including Bev and Sean. That's partially true. So what is Deviation 33, the little logo? Why is that the name of the company that doesn't exist? And why do I say it's an unagency for industry advocacy and community? Because I never want to be paid again. Ever.
You're perfect in the bike industry.
I actually sat down with Keith and he says, you will make it. So there's, I can't take credit for this, but there are 3 phases in life, one of my mentors told me. There's learning, earning, and returning. So deviation 33 is the returning phase. And so it will be an unagency of sorts because there will be a group of trusted experts in various fields, everything from product to marketing to videography with Robin and other things. And the company will be available to the industry to provide consulting services. I think everybody would hopefully agree that I'm, from both a marketing and business side, I'm fairly good at strategy and creativity. And so I'll help a company design a strategy to find the finish line that they're looking for. If they were to ask me to do that, they would donate to one of my 3 charities. They would not pay me. So they have to have some skin in the game so that they're serious about the engagement, but somebody else will get paid. And then I don't do any day-to-day work. The advisors, the team that will be represented on the website when it's done, will be the action figures of the company. They'll make it happen. And I want to do that for some friends that and colleagues that frankly are very talented first and could use the work second with the shrinkage and the consolidation in the cycling industry. And then there's a third element of it that also ties into industry advocacy and community. Much like we celebrated these 4 gentlemen today, I'm going to create an award. Actually, Bev is designing the logo for it. It's going to be called the Unsung Cyclist. I would like Craig to make me a carbon fiber belt buckle for this. And we are going to find the hidden heroes in the cycling industry. And when you think about the Academy Awards, for example, the cinematographer, the costume designer, the lighting guy, the whatever, they at least have one day a year where they're acknowledged. We only acknowledge the athletes and the self-promoters of the industry and on the industry side. None of these 4 people are self-promoters. They were invited here because even though the people in the room may know them, there are people using their products that don't know they even exist. So they are the first 4 unsung cyclists. I need you to make the belt buckles tomorrow. Okay? No. And we are going to find the industry guys, whether they're marketing, whether they're product, whatever. Maybe they drive the truck to all the races. Maybe they're a mechanic. We're going to find a group in advocacy that cares about cycling, the Andrews of the world, because they give, but they give within cycling. And then we're going to find the cyclists in the community that maybe do what Craig does, and they're a doctor, and they take all of their comp time, and they go to Africa to help cure ills, but they ride to work every day. The cycling community is one of the best communities in the world, made up of the best people in the world, and we've never, ever taken time to acknowledge the power of everybody that rides a bike.
Right on.
That's it. There you go.
Now go to the show. Get out of here.
The gym,